We have people online. All right. I call to order the Thursday, October 26, 2023 budget workshop number 2. Today we'll be focusing on public works for the mayor's proposed 2024 budget.
You might know this already, but I lost audio.
There we go. All right, our third council meeting of the week, so some people might be tired of hearing us talk already. Right. All right, where was it? Okay, second public budget meeting, focusing on public works today. I think just a reminder, the main purpose of this meeting is to understand the mayor's proposed budget. So for council, any questions we have regarding the proposal and the numbers and anything in there is great, but try and limit any in-depth discussion of what we'd like to see instead and save that for next week. All right, and with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to both of you to kick us off and start walking through the budget.
All right, yeah, so thank you, Council President. You said what I was going to say, so stick it to clarifying questions today, and a little bit of interesting, a little bit of depth is okay, but that's all we have. Next meeting will be on following Thursday, November 2nd, for the deliberation and questions. So with that, I'll turn over to Public Works Director Tom Nucky and Kim Seipel.
Thank you. There we go. So this presentation is going to follow the same order essentially as the prior presentations on the budget that I've done, with the exception that I'm going to be talking a little bit about asset management, let you know where we're at in implementing asset management. Pretty excited about that.
Just a clarifying question.
Sure.
This would be available to us?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so Public Works and Utilities is comprised of 8 divisions. And I've listed the division names up in the slide. We're budgeted in 10 funds plus 2 divisions of the general fund. We have 132 permanent employees, a total of almost 139 full-time equivalents. We are 35% of all city staff, 53% of the city's budget, with an expenditure budget for 2024 of $87.5 million. As far as new programs go for 2024, all we have for positions are upgrades that result from desk audits. We're also requesting a trailer for our forestry division. We have a mini excavator that currently we can only tow with a dump truck, and so it can't get into the more inaccessible areas. And the new trailer will allow us to use a pickup truck to tow the excavator, so it'll provide us better access. So no increase in positions requested. We have had a couple retirements and pending retirements, and so we've shifted some responsibilities around a little bit. So if you look to the far right, we have the same number of staff total, but with the retirement earlier this year of the utility manager and the promotion of the NPDES permit coordinator to the utility manager, we've shifted that responsibility from engineering over to utilities maintenance. And so one thing that I thought it'd be kind of fun to just add some photos of people doing work in the various divisions for this presentation. So that's kind of peppered through the presentation. So here's our facility folks doing some of the work that they do. Okay, so starting out with general fund facilities, they're responsible for maintaining all the buildings and grounds in the general fund except for the parks facilities. They also maintain buildings and grounds for several of the water facilities and the wastewater facilities. They also do construction, ranging from minor work up to fairly significant remodels. They also manage a ton of contracts, many maintenance contracts, and construction contracts as well. One of the other things that they do is they maintain the inventory of all of the equipment and materials for public works. There's over 25,000 inventoried items that they maintain, with a total up to about, I think it's about $850,000 currently. And that's everything from, fire hydrants and piping components to raincoats and hard hats. So it's a lot of responsibility. For 2024, for highlights, they have over $700,000 in service contracts and about $1.5 million in a combination of maintenance activities and capital improvements. And those costs are across the general fund and the utilities. I've listed out the major projects that they'll be working on this year. So some library improvements, which is really kind of follow on from the HVAC upgrade that is being completed this year. There's some energy efficiency insulation improvements and some interior alterations, some ADA accessibility improvements at the library, and then the Naval Museum roof is also a heavy lift for them. And then one thing that I wanted to point out also is that we have a project that's funded in TransCap, and it's the Shoneman Overcrossing. There's an area on Wyckoff that has a wall there that is identified in the Charleston plan to be an art mural. And so we have a $60,000 project that's budgeted in TransCap. We're going to be working on that this year to do the wall prep, paint it, clean up the cracks, in order to get that ready for the citizens to go in with the art and do the artistic improvements. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. Also have EV charging plan for city facilities and installation at a couple different locations. And then one of the shifts that I mentioned earlier is the electricians are going to be shifting from facilities to streets in 2024 with the pending retirement of the current internal services manager at the end of the year.
One questions on the
Yeah, I'd prefer it if you don't mind.
No worries.
Okay. So the internal, well, the city's the managing agent for the Bremerton Government Center Association, and the internal services manager is the representative of the city in that effort. He works with the finance director, and basically what they're responsible for is implementing all the operations, the maintenance, the capital improvements for the Bremerton Government Center. And costs are basically passed through for that as well. And so that's all the O&M contract work. They maintain the capital improvement plan. They coordinate with the government center folks for approval of those improvements, and then they conduct the improvements. They're also responsible for emergency call-outs as well. Oh, and there were questions on Monday regarding staff turnover and difficult to fill positions, so I got some notes here, and hopefully I don't forget to talk about these with each of the groups. But for this group, for the facilities folks, there's really no issues with turnover or vacancies, except kind of an ongoing theme of problems that we have is temps and seasonals. We just have a heck of a time hiring temps and seasonals. And again, I did mention that the internal services manager is going to be retiring at the end of the year, so that's a significant change for us. So The next division is general fund engineering. General fund engineering has all the same responsibilities that they have in the past, with the exception of the NPDES permit compliance. That's shifting away, or has shifted away from engineering with the promotion of our current utilities manager. So engineering is responsible for essentially all things capital. Katie in the administration is a project manager who picks off a couple different projects, but the rest of the capital delivery plan all resides within engineering. And so with that, they're responsible for all the planning, the design, construction management, inspection, securing funding for all the capital projects through the utilities, and then also the transportation projects. They also do, as part of the work with development support, they do right-of-way and utility permitting for development projects. They support operations, and they also have a customer response component. So the issues that go to engineering for customer response, all of the low-hanging fruit has basically been picked off at that point. So the items that go to engineering are issues that require some level of analysis, review, engineering, reports, those sorts of things. So a number of customer response tickets forwarded to engineering is down a bit from last year. And I don't know if you remember the backlog from last year, but they had a pretty significant backlog, and they've done a wonderful job in working through that. So yeah, kudos to engineering for that one. So 2024 highlights for the utilities. They're working on design and construction projects totaling about $17 million, 25 of them altogether. We have ongoing work associated with the nutrient general permit, although that permit is in question right now. It's just embroiled in a lawsuit. But the responsibilities for that, they're coming for us. We know that that's going to be a need on the horizon, so we're continuing to work with the consultant to ensure that we're making good decisions and gathering the correct data to be able to pivot to that new permit when it comes into effect. Also continuing work on the salinity study, and then as Ned indicated previously, we have been, actually this last year had a lot of really great meetings with the Port of Bremerton, with the Port of Bremerton regarding sewering the port area and PSIC as a whole. Coordination also with the county down there. On the transportation side, we have 16 design and construction projects totaling about $17.5 million, and I've listed out, generally what those consist of. The heaviest lift from a planning standpoint in transportation is clearly the transportation element of the comp plan, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later in the presentation. Engineering, again, also does development support. For this year, they've, through the end of September, they reviewed and processed 582 permits. The split is there, and that's actually up. It was 472 through September in 2022, so we're actually up on permits that engineering's working on. So I always like to present that engineering, it's true that engineering is a general fund expense, but it has revenue from all the utilities, from grants, and also from the general fund. And I've split that out above, and I'm showing in the pie charts there the difference between 2023 and 2024 revenue to general fund engineering. That's calculated every year, and that calculation is based on the capital fund delivery, which adjusts the revenue from each of those various funds. So nothing surprising there. It's within the, very, very consistent with what we've seen in past years. Okay, and so for engineering, from a staff turnover standpoint, we continue to have ongoing difficulty hiring engineers and technicians. We filled most of the positions in engineering, but we've had one civil engineer too position in utilities engineering that's been vacant since the end of last year. I think we started advertising it in December. It's still vacant. We've had, in the last couple of years since 2021, we've had 5 other engineering positions open. They've all been filled, but it's taken 5 months minimum to fill those. And so luckily we've got some great hires, we have, but it's been a challenge filling those positions. Similarly, it's taking 5-6 months to fill technicians' positions. We've had a couple of those open since the middle of last year. They've since been filled, and also had some turnover in the project assistants as well. Okay, so next is streets, and some photos of some recent street projects. So the far left photo is actually structural pavement repair that was done on Hartford Avenue ahead of this year's chip seal program. And so this is kind of midway through the project. They did the structural repair, and then they came through and they did the chip seal over the top of it. And the final product looks similar to the photo immediately to the right of that. So that's a finished product on a chip seal roadway. And then the 2 photos to the right are sidewalk work constructed by our city crews, completed work, and then work also in process. Okay, so streets has operation and maintenance responsibility for all streets. There's no capital or major maintenance funded through streets. They're responsible for all the streets and street assets. So that's 330 lane miles. It includes guardrail, fencing, curbs, signs, shoulders, potholes, vegetation, all of that. They also have a significant role in community event support. They have emergency response support, graffiti removal, garbage cleanup, city appearance, snow and ice control, those sorts of things. There are also a number of costs that exist in streets for the street program, like all of the electricity for street lights, fuel for the vehicles, insurance, those sorts of things. So some highlights of street responsibilities are responsible for maintaining 20,000 signs and then all of the street furniture, and I listed that out above. We're also responsible for all the city's traffic signals along with 7 state signals. And examples of the state signals are Loxie-Egan's, there's signals on Werner Road and Loxie-Egan's, and then also Fernie's, which is the entrance into Fred Meyer. But there's 7 total signals that are owned by the state that are maintained by the city. Customer response is also a fairly heavy lift with tickets going to streets. This is one thing that we learned from pavement management. About a third of all customer response calls to Bremerton 1 relate to potholes. And so our customer responder does a great job addressing actually the majority of those, but then the rest of them come to streets. So streets is also responsible for contract management of some of our major maintenance activities like chip seal, pavement markings, long line striping, and then I think I mentioned this earlier. If I didn't, the electronics supervision will be transitioning to streets with the retiring of the manager of that division. 2024 highlights. So I'm really proud of this one. So I think it was 2021 we started doing a heavy lift on Belfair Valley Road. We spent we budgeted, I can't remember what we spent, but we budgeted $150,000 per year for 3 years. The road was bad enough that it was really unsafe, and we were considering reducing the speed on that road in response to that. Also, it was a very significant maintenance responsibility for us because the crews, they were having to go out to the same location multiple times a week to fix the same potholes because the road was just in such disrepair. So this year, we completed our 3rd year of heavy structural repair on Belfair Valley Road, along with a little bit of overlay on that. And so now going forward, we anticipate our level of effort to be, maybe $30,000, something like that per year on that roadway to maintain it, which is a much lower responsibility than we had a couple of years ago. So really proud of that one. So a couple other highlights. Our street crew is going to be constructing a new pedestrian crossing at the 600 block of Callow. I don't know if you've gone down there. If you look down there, there's a span wire crosswalk, very old design, and the sidewalks and curbs aren't in great shape on either side of that, and so we're going to be providing a nice modern crosswalk at that location. So excited about that one. And then also Streets has a role in that Wyckoff wall painting activity as well. So we have also we have a couple different sidewalk trip hazard programs. We have the one that I can't remember if it was, I think it was Chris that brought it forward, maybe it was Nicotai brought the pavement trip hazard, or the sidewalk trip hazard removal program forward. So we're doing that. But Streets also goes out and they attack more severe trip hazards, typically root heave from trees, where we need to go out, address the tree in one way or another, tear out the panels and reconstruct the area. So we did 6 of those locations in 2023, and we're programmed to do 6 more in 2024. Those very significant trip hazards. So that's a goal. And then we also have some signal retiming on a couple major corridors that are also highlights for 2024. So the next fund is Transcap, and photos here are of Perry Avenue, and then the 11th and Washington project, and then East 11th Street. So Transcap is responsible, that's the fund that has all the capital construction and major maintenance for all streets in it. And so I've said this a few times, that even years are heavy opportunity years, heavy lift years for grants. And so 2024 is going to be one of those years. And what we're thinking, we will have capacity for is up to maybe 4 to 6 grant applications for priority projects. And so we understand there's half dozen different corridors that we understand to be priorities for council, but we're looking at prioritization and project selection for these projects a couple different ways. So first off, for this year, what we anticipate doing is reviewing the grants when they are announced, identifying what's a good fit, what projects can fit to that, then going to the Public Works Committee, having a conversation about what grants make the most sense from a prioritization standpoint, and then taking recommendations to the Finance Committee for approval to pursue. So that's the general approach there. With the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, what we're going to try to do with that is develop a quantitative metric to try to identify prioritization for projects, so that we can, and then apply that to other projects, so that we can have a better understanding of what priorities exist. And then it's probably going to come too late for 2024, but it'll help us going forward. So I just wanted to talk about that. 2024 highlights. I've broken it into 3 different categories, so planning, maintenance, and capital. And so we have $200,000 expenditure for planning, and that's really the comp plan that we're working on. So it's the active transportation plan and the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. And then for major maintenance, it's about $1.2 million, and those are activities that include like our sidewalk program, our chip seal, hot applied, those sorts of activities, Wyckoff wall painting. And then there's another project that we have that I wanted to mention, and that is our plan for improving MLK. And our goal with that is to address MLK over 2 years, to replace sidewalks. There's sidewalk gaps on the north side of the roadway. And then there's some other sidewalk that's just shattered and needs to be replaced. So we're going to be doing a fairly heavy lift on MLK on the north side, particularly on the sidewalk in 2024. And then in 2025, it's our plan to work on the pavement and try to provide a significant overlay project on MLK in 2025. So by the end of 2025, we'll have a nice improvement that I think better represents the street that the city honored. So honored Dr. King with. Capital projects, about $10 million for next year, and then we've listed those out. We've got the Warren Avenue Bridge, pedestrian improvements, Naval Avenue Road diet, all those various projects. And I meant to say under grants, I forgot to mention this. Let me go back to grants for just a second. So we have to look at our capacity to deliver grants, and it's a significant consideration. And it's a consideration really on two different parts. So the first part is what do we physically have the capacity, staff capacity, engineering capacity to deliver? And we've got a heavy workload right now, so that's going to be a consideration. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what do we have to match in order to deliver? And I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at REIT yet, but REIT is getting hit really hard. There's a very modest request in REIT right now for street improvement projects, but that's our match. Our match is a utility component of projects. Sometimes we can find a state grant to match a federal grant. That's really tough, very, very challenging. One of the problems with that is when you apply for the first grant, in order to be successful with the grant, you have to present a fully funded project, right? And so it's a challenge. I'm just saying, I just want to put that on your radar, that that's going to be a challenge in two ways for our grant pursuit. But we're going to be very transparent in communicating with council. Okay. Okay, street division work plan. This is just a little bit different. It's going to be a lot better when you can look at it on your own laptop, I promise. It's kind of busy, but there's a lot of information in here, but let me just talk through it.
Zoom in on it at all?
That's it. That's zoomed in.
Okay.
I don't know how to zoom in anymore on that then. I can talk you through it though. So this is the same work plan that I presented previously. I just updated it in one way, and that was to identify what work. So this is the work that's delivered by the street division, that crew. And what they, the work that they do is funded both in the street budget but also in the Transcap budget. So you'll see that kind of brownish text under ADA and sidewalk work is where it begins. So that's work that they perform that's budgeted in Transcap. Everything in black is budgeted in the street fund. So the column on the right, the far right, is the 2023 work plan. So what I've listed there was our plan going into the year, and then I can tell you actually where we are now and where we're projected to be by the end of the year. So as far as general operations go, again, general operations is city appearance, so that includes homeless cleanup and graffiti and sidewalk cleaning, litter control, community event support, those sorts of activities. So from our new asset management program, we know that the work associated with homeless cleanup has increased significantly over the year. We've spent, since July 18th, when the asset management program for streets went live, we've spent $29,000 just on homeless cleanup, just with the street division. So that doesn't include our customer responder, it doesn't include facilities, it doesn't include parks, right? So just with the street division. So that was more than we expected going into the year. But even with that additional effort, I got to tell you, the street crew just killed it this year. They did a wonderful job. For sidewalk repair and infill, we had a goal for 2023 to reconstruct 2,000 feet of sidewalk, and at the end of this year, we're projected to come in below that, about 1,500 feet of sidewalk. But the crew was projected to deliver 20 curb ramps, 20 curb ramps, and they've already constructed 28 curb ramps. And so, and I don't know if you remember, but for 2022, we kind of did just the opposite. We very much over-delivered on sidewalks and a little under-delivered on curb ramps. So honestly, I would say that they met their goal overall for sidewalk and curb ramps as a whole. And really nice work. Our trip hazard removal project, we finished up our slab jack the very beginning of this year and executed a new trip hazard removal planing contract that's underway, and so we absolutely met that goal. We had a goal to eliminate trip hazards with panel replacement at 6 locations. We met that goal. We had a 2023 goal to deliver 5 miles of lane miles of pavement preservation, but for 2023 we also were carrying forward the 2022 goal. So we had a goal to deliver 10 lane miles. We actually delivered closer to 13 lane miles, so we kind of overshot it on that one. And did some very nice improvements. One thing that I'd like to say, 13 lane miles, we recorded 1 complaint. So pretty great project. Where are we at? Structural patch. So we didn't have a defined goal for structural patch. Honestly, we didn't really have a feel, didn't have an understanding of what the street crew could actually deliver. So it was our intent to spend any extra time that we had working on structural patch, because again, what we're addressing there is failed pavement. And so we reconstructed this year about 5,000 square yards of roadway with this structural patch work on Union Avenue, and that's out by Reservoir 4. The area in places looks like an overlay because the patch repair was so significant. Also work on North Callow, West Belfair Valley, and then also 11th Street. Significant amount of structural patch on 11th as well. And then, as I mentioned previously, we completed the Belfair Valley Road improvements. And as far as overlay goes, we had a 1 lane mile goal, and we achieved that on Belfair Valley Road. So for 2024, essentially the same goals. We're formalizing the goal of 5,000 square yards of structural patch this year, and those structural patch locations, they're really defined by the streets operations manager. And what he's doing is he's identifying the high maintenance areas where we have recurring potholes. He's also coordinating with risk management, looking at claim history, and then also looking at customer response calls. So that's how those locations are identified. So council has requested that we present a split of residential improvements, funds spent towards residential versus functionally classified roads. And I just wanted to say that, we've got roads that are functionally classified that look and feel kind of like residential streets, and we got residential streets that are actually functionally classified. You know, we do. So for this presentation, we're using the WashDOT functional classification in order to identify which is which. And so the planning, that's our transportation element of our comprehensive plan. That's what that is. And for major maintenance, that split, you kind of get into the weeds to get into that one. We have, you know, different splits on traffic calming and pavement markings and things like that. You know, a chip seal, I can say, is, you know, $500,000 is allocated towards residential streets and 150,000 towards functionally classified roads. But that's what generally what makes up major maintenance. And then the capital work, pretty easy on that one, because that in large measure is our grant-funded improvements, and so those are mostly on functionally classified roadways. Okay, and so this is the expenditure revenue and then fund balance summary for streets and Transcap. And I guess the only thing that I wanted to highlight from that is that we have $7.3 million in revenue to Transcap from grants and then 1.3 from REIT projected for 2024. Those are the fund balances. And, you know, I talked about streets, but I don't think I told you about the personnel, so let me back up just for a second. So, so from a staff turnover perspective, you know, no real issues with turnover or vacancies with full-time staff. Again, you know, we really like to hire temps. We just really are struggling doing that. And then, as I mentioned a couple times, the manager's going to be retiring here actually Tuesday. So. Next is enterprise funds. So these photos, that first one is a Vector setup for sewer cleaning. Not sure where it is exactly. The photo kind of at the top is one of our utility service personnel who is doing meter set for a condo. And then we've got open cut construction of a sewer being conducted in the bottom right. So an overview of the enterprise funds. We've got 3 utilities. Each utility has an operating fund and a capital fund, and the way the funds are managed is annually 12% of the necessary operating expense for the fund remains in the operations budget, and then all excess revenue is swept into the capital budget, and then that's used for capital delivery. And so all the funds are very healthy. Stormwater continues to play catch up, and that's why it has, and I'll get into this in a second, but we have higher, from a percentage basis, we have a higher increase in stormwater than we do in the other funds. The one thing that I would like to point out on this is that this is a snapshot in time when we prepare the budget. And when we're looking at funding coming into the various funds, we are only considering the funds that are actually secured at that time. And so if you look down at stormwater capital, you'll see revenue for 2024 of about $1.4 million. We're in the final stages right now of executing a $2.4 million grant with the Department of Ecology for some work near Kitsap Way, and so that ending fund balance in 2024 is actually gonna end up $2.4 million higher than if we were doing that projection. That's, you know, that's how it would be. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the dashboard. Again, finance manages this. We do a 6-year look ahead at expenses, revenues, and project rate increases from that. So our past pre-COVID rate increases were just what you see up here. They were 3.5% for water and wastewater and 8.5% for stormwater. During COVID, For 2021 and 2022, we suspended all rate increases. And for 2023, we had 3.75% rate increases for water and wastewater and a 13% rate. And again, it's 13%, but it's a really small dollar value for stormwater because the rates are so low. And we did that, we had to do that because of some additional responsibilities from our NPDES permit. And so now our projection is back to what it was pre-COVID. And that's the projection right now annually for the 6 years, which results in a 4.4% rate increase on balance. And happy to say that we remain in a big way the most affordable utility in the region. And I really want to highlight that we're comparing our 2024 rates with other entities' 2023 rates, except for Port Orchard. We had data from Port Orchard. Also wanted to point out that Kitsap County currently has proposed 6.3% rate increases in wastewater for both 24 and 25, and 8.5% rate increase in 24 for stormwater, and 7.1 in 2025 for stormwater. And those increases are not reflected in that summary up above. Okay, so administration is, you won't find this in your budget. This is really how we're organized. So the administration, there's 7 of us in the administration in Public Works and Utilities. We're funded by all of the utilities and the general fund. We manage the Bremerton 1 customer response program. We have over 1,600 logged issues through September of this year, which is pretty close to on par with last year. What's interesting, I'm probably repeating myself, but we've learned that 1/3 of all calls that come into customer response are for potholes, and our customer responder that goes out, he addresses everything he possibly can. He's typically out same day, right? And he typically addresses everything that he can. So if there's a dead animal, he'll address it. If there's a knockdown sign and he can address it, he will. In talking to him, I've learned that 2/3 of all pothole complaints that we get, he's able to address with cold mix when he arrives on the scene of the complaint. And so really 2/3 of the pothole complaints are addressed the same day that they're called in. I mean, I think that's great. So I wanted to share that. Let's see. So the administration, we also manage a variety of programs, and by we I mean Katie as our project manager. And so for 2024 highlights, it's Quincy Square. That's a big highlight. The other big highlight is really our homeless shelter development, right? The site grading design that we're working on now. We also have a couple other projects. We've got wayfinding. We've got the Kitsap Way planning study. There are other activities that were on Katie's plate, but honestly, those have been pushed down as a lower priority and pushed out towards the end of the year. We'll do the best we can delivering them. Okay, so water resources. And I didn't realize this until I think it was yesterday, but all of those photos have forest in them. So apparently he's the only photogenic person in water resources for 2024. So we'll try to mix it up a little bit next year.
You got to turn this into a calendar.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah. So water resources has 11 FTEs. Let's see. Oh, sort of administration. Sorry, let me go back real quick. So we've had significant turnover in one OA senior position. We've had 5 individuals in that position for the last 2 years. But honestly, I don't think that that's a problem that needs to be solved. Everyone left for a variety of reasons. There was one person that cited job dissatisfaction, and that had to do with the fact the customer response. That can be a tough job at times. But there were, other people left because of promotions. There was one person that didn't work out. People leave for a variety of reasons. Okay, so back to water resources. So water resources, they're responsible for everything related to water quality and then water delivery from the standpoint of making sure that the reservoirs are full, the well pumps are pumping, that we're properly managing the release of water through Casad Dam. So they, and then all the treatment, water chemistry. So they operate and maintain all the source facilities, and I've listed those source facilities up there, all the pressure reducing stations, booster stations, all of those activities. They do all of the testing, the sampling, the reporting to make sure that we stay in compliance with all state and federal regulations. And we actually have two impoundments that are considered dams. Reservoir 4, our 11 million gallon reservoir, and then also obviously our Casad Dam. Highlights for 2024 are drinking water source approval applications for some wells and water rights for wells. And then we completed an evaluation of power generation and will be pursuing implementation at 5 different sites. With the 2023 budget, we took on a review of a power generation feasibility study. I think the last time that had been done was in the 80s. I haven't seen the findings from it yet. My understanding is there's nothing that we can jump on to try to generate power cost effectively. I'm really glad we looked at it. I believe that there is a recommendation for some additional review and study at 1 or 2 locations. As soon as we understand that more, we'll bring that to council and let you know. But that was a good effort to undertake, and I'm glad we did it. The other thing that we're going to be doing is working on the build out of our dark fiber to our critical facilities, which came to council here a while back. Okay, water maintenance. So, we have, actually I think on the next slide I tell you how many hydrants we have, and I can't remember what it is, but we maintain our hydrants, we paint our hydrants, and you can't really see it very well in this photo, but the photo in the bottom left, one of our utility service specialists is color coding one of the connections on the side of the hydrant, and what that does is that allows the fire department, when they roll up on a hydrant, to have a visual clue to what kind of pressure they have at that particular hydrant. So that's something that we maintain. The center photo is construction of a new pressure reducing valve near West Hills. And then the one on the right is a hot tap on a water main. And it's important to us that we do our own main taps. When you tap a main, you tap the main, you put a water connection on that, and then you bury it under a road. And if it leaks, you don't find out until you got a real problem. So we tap our mains. We do that with our crews. The responsibilities of water maintenance, so we have 14 FTEs, which includes the field customer responder. We're responsible for taps of the mains, like I mentioned. 158 is about 50% more than our typical year, down a bit from the last few years, but still well above our typical year through September. We're responsible for water main flushing, valve maintenance, repair and construction. We have over 300 miles of distribution and transmission mains. And the question came up, it was either last night or Monday, I can't remember which, but I think it was last night about, well, which is the does the water system extend beyond the city's borders? And yes, it does. And so a couple data points that I'd like to point out. One is the length of the distribution and transmission mains, 300 miles, but also the number of accounts, 20,000 accounts. And then we'll compare that here in a minute to wastewater. We're responsible for all the meters in the system that go all the way from a 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter to a single family residence to the 10-inch meter that we have for connection to Naval Base Kitsap, Bremerton. They do door knockers and shutoffs in coordination with utility billing. They maintain all of our fire hydrants. And again, the field arm of the customer response program, also responsible for one call locates. So for 2024, we're going to continue the significant effort on taps and meter sets and meter change out. We have a couple mains that are substandard that they're going to be reconstructing, and we're flushing. We split the city in half. One year we flushed West Bremerton, the other following year East Bremerton. So we're flushing West Bremerton now. We'll flush East Bremerton next year. There we go. Forestry. Let me back up. So for personnel, we again, really the big thing for really all of the utility maintenance is the difficulty in hiring temp seasonals, and then we've had a couple also position vacancies for people retiring. So forestry. The far left photo, that's replanting, reforestation that's being done. The more center photo, that's one of the bridges, I'll talk about it in just a minute, that's being replaced this year. We have capacity issues with that bridge, and so we're needing to replace it. The photo in the bottom right, that's mechanical brush cutting on one of the forest roads. And the top photo is Tootsie. That's the name. I don't know who named that biosolids application truck Tootsie, but that's Tootsie. So, and I guess I wanted to mention, so we had, Tootsie was down for what, 5 months, 6 months, I think, this year. So the truck's back up and operating now, has been operating for like 6 weeks, something like that right now. We've had the replacement on order for a couple years. I've seen photos of it. It's doing operational testing right now. It looks complete to me. We should have it. I've got to think we're going to have the new truck in November. And so our plan is to have that truck and then put our existing biosolids applicator in reserve so that we don't have that same problem again. So that's our plan with that. Yeah.
And you had seamless application of the biosolid fund even during
No.
Tootsie being down?
Nope. No, we can't. No, it's a hard stop. When our applicator is down, we're storing biosolids. We have a couple different contingency plans, and we were about that close to having to start moving on the contingency plans. One of them involves a shed that actually the golf course uses to store equipment. It's actually our fallback for biosolid storage, and we were to the point where they were moving equipment out of that shed for us to start biosolid storage at that location. But the applicator got back up, and we were able to begin the applications and get caught up. So we're caught up now. So we've got, and we had and that's not the only contingency plan. We have more contingency plans behind that. So all of those would have cost more money though. So we never got to a panic stage, just white knuckle. So that's where we were with that. Anyway, so forestry responsibilities. We have somewhere between 8,000 and 8,400 acres of watershed and utility land, and forestry's responsibility Their responsibilities include reforestation, stand management, security, a lot of coordination with DNR and adjacent property owners. They manage our annual timber harvest, and like we talked about last night, we're going to have conversations with the utility land management plan about that program and how that program should function going forward. Let's see, they maintain 60 miles of roads, including 7 bridges through the utility lands. It's important that we continue to maintain those for emergency response, fire prevention. They also manage the biosolids application program, including maintaining 25 miles of biosolids trails. They're also responsible for all the coordination and reporting with ecology on that biosolids application program. And we actually have a role in wildfire management that we work with both Bremerton Fire and also DNR with. So we have an agreement, a contract with DNR. They're our fire response, but no one knows our access, our road system better than our crews. We also have equipment that is right on scene, and so we have annual coordination and training with DNR for fire response, and so that's one of the responsibilities of Public Works. So for 2024, highlights are completing the update to the utility lands management plan. We have a harvest projection that I've listed up there along with replanting. As I mentioned previously, we have 2 bridges that are under capacity. They're on the west side of the impoundment behind Casad Dam, and we're going to be replacing those this year, along with some roadway that reconnects them. It has some reconstruction associated with it as well. We also have plantation management and some pre-commercial thinning, and then of course the ongoing coordination with DNR regarding our forest practice permit compliance requirements. So next is treatment. So we have, I keep doing this. So no vacancies more than 3 months in forestry. We had 1 position that turned over within 3 months, but that was really due to the person moving to another division in the department. So really no issues. Treatment. So the top left, that's a photo of one of the larger pumps that we have in the system, and that's at I believe pump station CE1 on the north end of Park. Then the photo that's in the backgrounds are west side, wastewater treatment plant. The inset photo is of the CSO treatment plant, the east side treatment plant. And then the top right photo is just some maintenance cleaning being done at the west side plant. So 21 permanent employees in wastewater. They're responsible for O&M and capital improvements at the some capital improvements at the 2 wastewater treatment plants. 43 major pump stations, and some of those major pump stations like I just showed you the photo of, these are significant facilities all on their own, very much so. And then we have 3 remote, very significant odor control stations, and then we have just shy of 300 privately owned residential grinder stations that we're also responsible for, and we manage those through contract. This group is responsible for facility improvement, construction. They do a lot of pump replacement and those sorts of things, equipment replacement. When you get into major capital projects, then that becomes a coordinated project with engineering and is delivered, as a capital project. They do a lot of equipment repair, replacement, and system process upgrades. A lot of the work, well, not a lot of the work, an activity that they've been doing here recently has been some pilot testing with HDR for nutrient reduction, which has been fairly interesting. They're responsible for compliance with our wastewater NPDES permit, and just about every year they receive the award for outstanding treatment plant operations from the Department of Ecology, and we're very, very proud of that. They do a wonderful job. They're also responsible for managing and recording the CSO reporting program. So highlights for 2024. So this is kind of interesting. I wanted to point this out. We've, again, we have a modest expected increase in rates in wastewater, but we've had some pretty sharp increases from some of the supplies that we use in our operations. So sodium hypochlorite, the cost of that has doubled since 2022. The electricity is up 25%, and ecology fees have also doubled. And really, for the electricity increase and the notification that we just got from Puget Sound Energy regarding natural gas, those increases are due to the state's, what's it called? Now, hang on, I got it. It's a cap and invest program. Climate Commitment Act. It's a Climate Commitment Act. And so there's a cap and invest program, and ecology's costs have increased because of that, and so our rates are increasing. But again, it hasn't had because the supplies and services are so large, it hasn't had a market increase in that to the point that we're seeing it in our rates yet. But there are a few things that have really jumped up. So another 2024 highlight, we are working with Trane. Trane is an ESCO, they're an energy services company. So we're working with them for design and construction of some energy savings upgrades at the East Side treatment plant, really kind of mostly focused on the UV, replacing the UV, but also a lot of other related and unrelated equipment that has really just aged out. So that's underway. We are continuing to evaluate optimization opportunities for reducing nutrient discharges, and we have some generator replacement also that we'll be doing as well. Okay, and for the treatment plants, this is kind of interesting. So again, they've had trouble hiring temps, but we have a fairly high turnover in our laborer position, which is an entry-level position. And it really makes sense if you think about it, because people come in, if they are sharp folks, we're either going to promote them if we have a place for them to move to, or they're going to find a job with somebody else to move up. So it's kind of a stepping stone position for entry-level stepping stone position. The positions are easy to hire because people are looking for that job, but they just don't last very long because they move on. So, okay, so maintenance, wastewater maintenance. I really wanted to try to communicate the level of capabilities that we have with our crews. And so if you take a look at the far left photo, that's open cut construction. I'm not sure what it is exactly. I think it's probably a sewer line. They get way deeper than that. They get down to 15, 18 feet deep when we do open cut construction. When I started working, you always did open cut construction. You only worked trenchless if you had to because the costs were so high. That's really flipped. Now we do trenchless construction anytime we can. It's safer, it's faster, way less obtrusive, and it's less expensive. And so the partially obscured photo there is that's a setup for lateral restoration using our UV cure in place pipe process. And I got to tell you, it's one of the coolest things that we've taken on since I've been with the city. We just took that on in 2020 or 2021, can't remember which. I think we had a goal of restoring 20 sewer laterals a year. We've absolutely beat that. One of the great things about this program is the way that we used to do this when we found a problem sewer. You know, you get a call from a resident and they've got a backup, they've got sewer in their house, or they've got a backup, they've got a problem. And we'd go out, we'd investigate, we'd identify what the problem was, and then we'd have to call a contractor in to come next day, later in the week, you know, in order to address the problem, right? Now, we can get a call, we can do the investigation, and sometimes same day or next day, we can do a permanent repair on the sewer, put them back in service. And from a customer service standpoint, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. So, wastewater maintenance is 11 people, including the supervisor. And one thing I got to say is that those 11 people, they're responsible for both the wastewater collection system, the sewers, but also stormwater. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get into stormwater. But anyway, 11 folks. They're responsible for 200 miles of gravity and pressure sewers, ranging from 2-inch to 42-inch. And if you remember, it was 300 miles in water, 200 miles in wastewater, just to give you an idea of kind of scope. We are responsible for all the sewer laterals in the right-of-way, 12,000 accounts. And again, that's compared to 20,000 accounts in water, right? We maintain all the appurtenances associated with the system, and we listed out a few of them there. We're responsible for repairing sewer mains and laterals, and we do that with a variety of techniques. The crews have a lot of equipment, and it's, you know, you really need the right tool for the job, and it's no more so than in this industry. We are responsible for inspecting our sewers. We do them with video inspections, a combination of work by our own crews. We have that capability, but we also contract some of that out as well. And then we also do after-hour locates for sewer emergencies. So for 2024, our goal is to inspect 10% of our collection system annually. Our focus for next year is going to be beach sewers, and this next one's kind of cool. You know, our beach sewers are typically, I think they are all in the intertidal area. And so you've got a short window when you can actually get out and see the manholes and the sewers themselves. And so our utility manager, in coordination with the supervisor, are looking to develop a drone program to be able to fly the sewers, have good video inspection that we can accomplish very quickly, you know, during lower tides. So that's a program that we're trying to implement next year. And then I already talked about cure in place. And then we just have the ongoing inspection, cleaning, and repairs of the system. Okay, so stormwater operations. So stormwater has, as far from an organizational standpoint, stormwater I would say has more components to it than any of the other utilities. It's it has a lot of regulations, a lot of very prescriptive regulations regarding how we function. And so one of the aspects of that I haven't talked about before is our compliance group. And so the photos on the left are photos of our compliance group. And so that dumpster that has a discharge from it, I mean, that shouldn't be happening, right? So that's a private business. That dumpster should be undercover. There should be no discharge that leaves the site. And so with the permit requirement upgrades, improvements, whatever you want to call it, that took effect in 2023, we began a commercial inspection program where we inspect all of our businesses once every 5 years. And these are the kinds of things that we're finding, and then we work with those businesses to correct. And again, it all has to do with water quality, right? That next photo on the right, that's a grease trap from a business. So we go and inspect the business. We make sure that they're properly managing their grease traps, keeping those discharges from leaving their business. And then we work with them. If they have, if they're not managing it properly, we work with them to try to correct that. The next photo is a culvert under construction, and then the photo on the far right is a filter media for stormwater treatment. And so the crew calls those little green cubes croutons. It's a sponge material that absorbs pollutants. So the maintenance on those consists of replacing the media. It's very, very site specific, usually between 6 months and a year. We've got 14 of those systems in the city right now, and we're adding more. And we're going to be adding more and more and more of those. And again, all of this is really focused on safeguarding and improving water quality in all the receiving waters. Let's see, there we go, okay. So the stormwater program delivery, it has several divisions, it's different groups that actually work on those programs. So different aspects of the program. So the first one is the NPDES permit compliance. So there's 2 people that work in this section, and they're responsible for the program management, and it's headed by our new stormwater program manager that council approved here recently. They do a lot of coordination with ecology on permit issues. They coordinate with all public works divisions and departments on permit requirements. They complete the annual stormwater management program plan. They manage our illicit discharge and detection program. Kind of a neat program. They go out typically in the summer, look for discharges from storm systems, and test the water quality to make sure that it really is just water and that there's not, a sanitary or other contaminant entering the water. If they find that there is, then they track that upstream and then coordinate with wherever that's coming from to correct it. They also do regional coordination at the state and local level, which is very important to make sure that we're following best practices in both how we're managing the system and then also in our permit compliance. They also do watershed planning to support the NPDES permit. So that's those 2 folks. Then we have utility compliance. There's 3 people that consist of utility compliance. So they do all the annual inspection of public and private facilities. And they do maintenance enforcement in the city. Parks has their own program, but they do the rest of it. They also do inspection and reporting for the businesses that I mentioned previously. And again, that's a brand new program required by the permit that started this year. Let's see. Permit compliance is 2, utility compliance is 3. Then the stormwater maintenance, so the same 11 people that are responsible for all of the wastewater collection system are responsible for the stormwater collection system. So you can kind of think of it as 5 people stormwater, 5 people wastewater. But they absolutely share resources anytime they have work that requires more folks. So they're responsible for all the city stormwater assets, which is listed above 13 miles of ditches, 114 miles of storm mains, all those catch basins and treatment. And as I said, the treatment, it continues to increase. We're also responsible for 24-hour one-call locates, manage the sweeper program for all city streets, and then that sweeper waste and factor waste is collected and then is classified as moderate waste, and we're responsible for the permitted disposal of that waste. And then new program that we're starting, or actually I'm sorry, inspection and reporting on all catch basins. This is a permit requirement every 2 years. Okay, engineering. Engineering has responsibility for all the capital project delivery, and then also the development, design issues associated with development and permitting. Also modeling assistance, GIS system development. There's one engineer dedicated to stormwater, and then depending on what the activity is, they'll use other engineering assets to deliver projects based on the priority. So 2024 highlights, we're continuing our ongoing program for Kitsap Lake cleanup. Really, that's 2 phases or 2 different approaches that are moving forward. We don't see that changing at all. So we're using a little bit different chemical than in past years. It's really inert. It binds with free phosphorus in the water, carries it to the bottom, and then we also have vegetation control, mechanical harvesting in the nearshore areas of the lake. Been very effective. It's been a great program. We have our ongoing stormwater rain garden program with Kitsap Conservation District. This is actually a really cool program. It's funded by the utilities, combination of water and wastewater, and it is a program where we're able to make improvements on private property, so we can address issues with stormwater, water quality and quantity issues sometimes on private property through this program, and really it's making payment to the conservation district, and they come up with the improvements and implement them. We're going to be continuing working on the variety of work activities required by the permit. Those are listed above. Including modeling and basin assessments. Also continuing our stormwater management action plan. That's actually another permit requirement. The city's made up of a whole number of basins, individual basins. And so what we're doing is doing kind of a deep dive into a couple basins a year. I think it's about a 4-year program, 5-year program, 4 or 5. I don't see my note right now, but it's anyway, it's a multi-year program. Let's go with that. In order to do a deep dive into the basins and identify what quantity and quality improvements are required for each of the basins. And there's a lot on our radar, but they're not in an organized plan yet. So that's the goal for that. Let's see. And then we'll continue working with the West Sound Stormwater Outreach Group in their activities. And then we also have a new program that we're starting next year to do replacement of some of our older substandard catch basin frame and grates with new style. Okay, so asset management. Let's see. Yeah, the only issues again are just the temp seasonal issues with those groups. So this is a screenshot from our cartograph program, and it's just one tiny component that is populated in asset management, and it's not easy to see at all. But if you look in the top left, you see cycle valve west. What you can't read is the number in blue below that, which is 4,176. So what that represents is the number of valves that are planned to be cycled this year. And so valves are, you need to operate the valve. You close them all the way down, open them back all the way to make sure that they're still operating. You have to do that. You have to exercise those valves regularly, or when you go to use them, they're going to be frozen. You're not going to be able to use them. So if you look at that kind of purplish blue bar right below that, it looks like it's about half complete, which is exactly where it is. So we had 4,100 valves planned to be cycled. We have 2,000 at the time the screenshot was made, 2,012 that had been cycled, and another 2,158 that are planned to be cycled before the end of the year. And the total cost of cycling those valves is $69,227, with a labor cost of $51,000 and equipment cost of $18,000. So there's lots and lots of data that come from that, but I kind of wanted to provide something to give you an idea what the data looks like. So the asset management program, and I got to just simplify it so that I can understand it for myself. Well, let me back up first. So the program is administered under finance. It's actually funded by the department that the asset manager is actually working with. And to date, most of the work has been with Public Works and Utilities. There's actually 3 people right now working in asset management. So it's our asset manager, and then he's got 2 not interns. What's the term? Not interns. A fellow. Okay, one's an intern, one's a fellow. Sorry about that. So temp employees assisting us. So the responsibilities of asset management, I kind of think of in 2 different phases. One of them is to collect all the data to understand what we're doing now. So create all the inputs so that we do a good job of recording what our labor effort is, what our equipment costs are currently with the way that we're doing business today, right? And then the next part of that is evaluating that data that's been input and then figuring out how we can improve our processes and procedures to be more efficient, more effective, and reduce costs and improve quality, improve reliability, those sorts of things. So, so then with that, so the responsibilities of the program are to quantify all the city's assets and record event data, and they're recording that against an asset or a component of an asset. And so we have, just thinking of the treatment plant, we have a lot of big equipment there that has a lot of critical components on it. And so if you've got like a boiler that has several valves on it and other devices, pumps and things that make it operate, each one of those valves and pumps are components of that major asset. So so that's one of the responsibilities. One of the goals is to document data to that level. It's also to understand the asset performance metrics and the life cycle cost. And then here's one thing that Terrell really emphasized as we were working towards this is, at the end of the day, the data that comes out of a program is only as good as the data that you put into it. And so the only way that we're going to have good information is if we have a good program established for our field crews to very simply and easily input the work that they're doing. And so there was a big focus of Terrell's to make sure that he trained staff and he worked with them so that we have a very efficient way for the crews to be able to input the data, and that's been done. And then another responsibility is analyzing the data to identify, improvements and procedures, issues that are at risk, and figure out best courses of action to correct. So as far as our implementation status, so we've been working on asset management for about a year, and one of the first things that Terrell did, was to work with us to identify a schedule, an implementation schedule, and right now we're 2 years ahead of that schedule. At this point, all of the, and I'm going to say this wrong, but it's the way I think of it, all of the categories of work that we input data in for all of public works, for valve cycling, hydrant maintenance, all of the various activities that the crews do, all of those input locations have been established, and now we're at a point where we're just populating that with data. So we're just right now at the beginning of just starting to get data out of that. A year from now, what I understand is that we're going to have data that we're actually able to make decisions with. And I probably said that wrong, because water has been implemented for a while, so we're probably going to be able to start making decisions with the input from water sooner, but the rest of it, really next year at this time is really when we're going to have some very, very interesting information to share. That fair, Terrell? Okay, fair enough. All right. And I'm really thinking of this from a public works and utility standpoint, but Terrell's also been working with other departments to implement asset management with them as well. So for 2024 highlights, we're going to begin development of degradation curves for our assets. Please don't ask me what that means. I'm going to have Terrell come up and explain that to everyone. And then we're going to be working on continuing to input data and then understand the output from the data. And so just a couple high points of things that we've learned from the asset management data that I thought were really interesting. So a couple weeks ago, Terrell came up to me, he said, we're spending a lot of money on customer response, a lot. I said, okay. So we talked about it, and he's provided the top 5 items that are from customer response over the last 3 months. So the third quarter of this year, so July, August, and September, we had 713 requests. 532 of those were closed. We expended 1,308 labor hours on all of that work, and it cost $163,000 across all divisions. So when you look at that, if you do the math and if you assume that the customer response calls are linear through the year, that's 3 FTEs labor in addressing customer response calls for service. And honestly, I feel kind of good about that, because that shows us being responsive. But I think it also shows that we have an opportunity to improve our processes, because this is us being reactive and not proactive. And so, although I feel good about the fact that we're being very responsive, and again, as I mentioned, same day we're addressing 2/3 of all the pothole complaints that come in. With being a little bit smarter, I think, or more informed is probably a better way to put it. With more information, I think that we can start to get ahead of that and become more proactive in addressing these issues, which I think, as I understand, is the whole goal of the program. So, but anyway, looking at those, the top 5 calls, by far, top call is pothole repair. So there's 173 requests for pothole repair. And one quick comment on that. So this is summer months. This is July, August, and September. Potholes form much more regularly in the winter, so this is going to increase. We had 86 requests for garbage, homeless encampment cleanup, 38 requests for sewer maintenance, then vegetation requests and water leaks, and then it just goes on from there. So those top 5 categories, that's about half of the total calls for service. Apparently there's about 50 different categories of work behind that, and they drop down into the handfuls of calls. And again, this is just for the third quarter of this year. And then there's other example data with the year to date, and I'm not going to go through those. They were kind of high points that I thought were interesting. Really no conclusions from any of that. It's just data that we have, and I thought it was worth pointing out. So no issues and concerns from a staffing standpoint for asset management.
Terrell hasn't run away yet.
I'm sorry?
He hasn't run away yet.
Terrell hasn't left. No, we're happy with that. No, he's killing it. He's doing a wonderful job. Really, really happy to have him. Okay, so capital projects, next category. So just some work that we're working on right now. It's Pump Station 14, which is under construction. That's the inside. The next photo to the right is looking up on the inside of one of our larger reservoirs during a recoat project that's underway. And then that photo with the in situ form truck, that's cure in place piping. They use a little bit different process, very similar to what we use, only we do UV cure. They do cure with heat. They can either use hot water or steam, and I think we've been using steam cure the last few years. And then that photo on the far right, that's also Pump Station 14 that's in the process of being constructed. So we have about $28 million in 2024 in utility capital, about $10 million in water. And I've split those up between design projects and construction projects, and to try to move this along, I'll just let you read them. Unless there's any questions, we can cover that ground. Sorry?
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Wastewater, a little over 12 million, and stormwater, 6.5 million. And again, we've got $550,000 in grant funding that's shown right now, and 2.4 million in a pending grant that should be coming to council for approval very, very soon. Oh, and I guess the one thing that and let me talk about this for just a second. So under water construction, the very last construction project there is Oyster Bay site grading. So that's not actually in the budget. There's going to be a budget adjustment forthcoming for that. That is only for the site grading work that's forward compatible with the long-term use of the project. It has nothing to do with the cost of implementing and constructing a shelter at that location. It's just for the site improvement, which will work long-term with the facility. And the last one is equipment maintenance and ER&R. And I really want to point out, we've got 4 people that work in this division, and they just do a fantastic job. They're the ones that keep all of our assets running, not only rolling stock, but also lawnmowers and other major assets. They do everything from repowering the fireboat to keeping the fire engines and the police cars running, plus all of our heavy equipment. And another thing about this group is the equipment's getting more diverse and more complex. It used to be gas and diesel. It's now hybrid. It's electric. Very complicated, and they do a wonderful job maintaining it. So the equipment maintenance responsibilities is to keep all of the equipment running. There's over 300 pieces of equipment, again, lawn mowers to ladder trucks. They complete all repairs except body work, alignments. We don't paint, those sorts of things. In the past, we've done the upgrade of all vehicles for service, and we still do some, a lot of that. But there is actually quite a bit of work that is required when we get a new police car, for example, in order to upfit it for service. And so we've started outsourcing a little bit of that due to work backlog. Their responsibility is to keep the equipment running and minimize downtime, which they do a wonderful job doing. So for 2024 highlights, we have some certification training that they'll be taking on, and I just mentioned the upfit using a third party. ER&R is the fund where the equipment, it's a reserve fund for replacement, for purchase of replacement vehicles. For that fund for 2025, we have $1.5 million in vehicles, which are shown here. And just to let you know, we continue to have a tough time purchasing vehicles, and I think we're still purchasing vehicles that were approved in 21, I think. I believe that's true. And we found the finish line, so. Oh, okay, yeah, labor issue, thank you, Kim. Again, seasonal labor, very, very difficult. We just got notification of one of our technicians is going to be moving on to a different job, so, which is really a bummer. He's one of the younger folks, very capable, excellent employee. Hate to see him go.
That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Brain dump.
That's the end, yeah. I can do it again if you want.
Consent? No good deal.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. All right, so that was a lot of information, but very thorough. And I just want to say kudos to everyone in Public Works for. I mean, it's a ton of work. It's hard work, and it's really great work. So, thank you for laying that all out, and thank you for the all the transparency and just putting everything in there. I think incredibly appreciated. Let me just check. So I know we have Jennifer online. Is Quinn as well? Okay, perfect. So we got some pizza coming in about 20 minutes, so we can take a break then and eat. But we could start with some Q&A. I'm thinking the most efficient way may be to just kind of go back by category. I don't know if folks made notes of questions. We could start with stormwater, wastewater, streets, all that, or we could just go one at a time down our list. But any thoughts, council, how you want to handle that?
I took my notes in order, and I'm assuming that.
Perfect. That's how I got mine. Yeah. All right. Let's do that. Yeah. All right. So yeah. Now it's worth rewinding the slide deck to the start, but I believe the first one was basically general fund expenditures.
Facilities.
The facilities, thank you. That's it.
Did you want to put it back up?
I think might as well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we can just kind of scroll that way. We got them ready. We scroll through and we can go category by category. So if we start with general facilities, any questions from council? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, your microphone, Denise. Sorry. Thank you. One person online. Yeah. And recording.
I just made my notes more general, about, I don't have specific questions about individual projects. Mine are more overarching. So I'm happy to move through, and if something triggers, and if not, I'll wait till the end.
Perfect. Then I'm not
Yeah.
overarching at the end. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So general fund facilities.
My first question is on general
And
fund.
microphone. Sorry.
My first question's on general fund engineering.
Okay.
We good with this one then?
Jennifer Quinn. I just had one, which was the Navy Museum roof. So that was 200,000. So does that come out of the city general fund to upkeep that?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
There's no grant money behind that, no.
Just kind of ask, so I know the city owns the building and that's what we pay for the maintenance. Do we get anything from the Navy or from the Navy Museum in terms of revenue or?
No.
Okay.
No.
Gotta say, as a volunteer for the Kitsap History Museum that owns its own building and has to pay for its own roof, it's just, yeah. For the museum itself, yeah. Oh, the Navy's, yeah. Navy has no money, yeah. Okay. Sorry, nothing to be done about
Pulls in
that.
a lot of
Sounds
money.
like,
Got it, yeah.
but it does tourism money, yeah.
Does pull in a lot of people for tourism.
Do they get LTAC funds?
They haven't always applied for it. They did apply for it recently.
Okay.
I don't know if they're an applicant this year yet.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. All right, Jennifer Quinn, you'll just have to speak up if I hit a category. Just speak up first if you have questions. So, all right, so which category's next?
So
I think
there's
it's there.
Government Center. Engineering.
All right, Anna.
I was wondering about the big decrease in transportation grants compared in 2024 compared to 2023.
Oh, that changes every year. It's, is this the best one to present that? It really just, it varies depending on project delivery. And honestly, I'd have to get right into the weeds to be able to answer that. It likely has to do with, focus on design, one year, and then a major construction project the next year. I think that, I'm not sure how else to answer that other than that. That varies every single year.
I have a couple more questions on this category. One is, here and elsewhere, you refer to homeless cleanup, and only under asset management do you call it homeless encampment cleanup. I think the whole council would prefer that you make it consistently homeless encampment cleanup throughout the document. Because,
Okay.
yeah, because cleaning up the homeless is, wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it.
Yeah.
No. It's just, and it's
I know.
kind of a larger category. So and it's not all just.
It's just two other times in the
Okay.
document. Yeah.
All right.
And then my other question is, you're doing major signal retiming on Kitsap and Wheaton in accord with the SR 303 corridor study. What pages show those costs? Because later you refer to that as electronic transitioning from streets to streets.
Yeah, traffic signal.
Electronic supervision is transitioning to streets, yeah.
No, that's the signal for 303.
Yeah, those are the two electricians.
I think I'm gonna have to get back with you on that one. So,
So this
the
is not
signal-
adaptive signals?
the signal timing cost for, no, it's signal timing. It's not an adaptive signal program. I think I'm gonna have to talk, can you answer that, or is that a Shane thing?
That's Shane. I know that there's some ongoing signal timing that needs to be done,
Yeah.
but I think we confuse two things. One, when you talk about moving electronics into streets, right? That's moving that through from the civil to streets.
Right.
And then we have the adaptive signals project, which should be on the capital projects line. And it's probably a design, whatever that number is, it's shown there as the design, summer start to end. But I think there's some ongoing signal timing that's also operations based that's happening also. I think it's all of those.
It's in the capital improvement.
Yeah, and you're doing a pilot program as well this year, yeah? For the thing that we're not talking about, the adaptive signals?
It's not even in the budget for 2024.
The pilot program, I think, yeah.
Adaptive
There's no pilot program for adaptive signals.
Okay,
That-
well, I
that-
will dig it out and prove myself wrong. How's that?
Well, I'm looking, I'm just not seeing anything budgeted for the adaptive signal until 2025.
I think
Yeah.
that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
The signal timing is not adaptive signals. I gotta talk
Okay.
to Shane on that, but that's something that our electronics group is doing.
Okay.
Glossary.
Then
What's that?
We need a glossary.
There's
Yeah.
one that would be a good thing, but actually the back of the budget is pretty decent. So my final one for this, this section is major sidewalk repair, right, where you're basically doing major sidewalk repair. Did all of these events in 2023 result in the removal of the tree that was heaving up the sidewalk?
So that's streets, that's not engineering.
Okay.
The major sidewalk repair, that's streets. And yeah, there were 6 locations. Let me flip to that. Or do you want to flip page by page to this until we get, I guess.
Well,
we're
it
at the
wasn't,
streets.
it wasn't the trip hazard repair. I believe under engineering, you had like the replacement of panels at like 2 or 6 locations.
6 locations,
Yeah.
no, that's streets.
Okay.
That's streets.
Okay.
And let me flip to that real quick. So the addresses are up there under 5, so 1346 Trenton, 710 Pennsylvania, 922 Highland, all those locations. And mostly, I believe, those involve tree removal, except for one location. It was less costly and less risk for us to adjust the sidewalk around and lose parking in the street in order to address that. So that, yeah, that's work that the street crew delivered.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't have any more questions until Transportation Projects Fund.
Okay.
Good. For streets, yeah. Any other engineering questions? No? In that case, so then streets. Tried a few myself. Any more for you, Anna, on streets? Any other council members before I go?
I'm good.
Special Revenue Fund?
Special, yes. Yeah, Special Revenue Fund streets.
Is this the Transportation Projects Fund, pages 117 through 118? No, then never mind.
Streets right now, Transcap comes
Yep,
next.
never mind.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So in streets, I just had two quick ones. So the 600 block Callow is the it's 6th and Callow, that whole intersection with the pedestrian.
No, it's not,
Crosswalk
it's a
improvements.
mid-block crossing.
Oh, mid-block,
actually.
okay.
Yeah, and I wish I would have if you drive up there, you can see it, there's a span wire cross, and there's lights on either side. It's a very old design. It's kind of by the Chinese restaurant there.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think near the clock in the, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yep.
East. All right. Okay, fantastic. So, nice. And then, as far as planner maintenance goes, I don't know, we talked about that early in the summer, because there were some businesses downtown wanting to plant flowers and the planters and all that. So basically, Public Works maintains the physical planters themselves and the maintenance, but just to be clear, not anything in them, correct?
We're
It's
not,
just
you know,
buried.
all we did is we relocated them in, and we're not, we actually, we were looking initially at coming up with some sort of an agreement to formalize, you know, with an entity that we weren't going to be responsible for maintaining anything in the planters. Turned out there was no real formal organization to execute that agreement with, so it's more of a handshake. But no, we relocated those from East 11th. I think they came from East 11th, but we
Yeah, to
don't.
Callow.
Yeah, we don't. We don't have any responsibility for ongoing planting and maintenance in that area. No.
That makes sense. Just wanted to clarify. And yeah, I think some of the local organizations, sorry, I just want to thank you for empowering them to, like, when they wanted to, be able to plant and water and maintain them themselves. And, you know, indeed, strangely enough, some plants do walk off once in a while. So, but the way it goes. All right, perfect. That's all I got there. Streets going once, going twice. On to Transcat. Oh, yeah. You had another streets?
Yeah, it's just going back to that, the major signal retiming on Kitsap and Wheaton. What page of the budget shows those costs?
I
The
think
major signal retiming on Kitsap and Wheaton, what pages in the budget show those costs?
yeah, it's an operational activity that they're doing. I'm not sure that the budget really gets that granular to identify that. But I can provide council some additional information regarding that. It's something that since it's under streets, it's something that our signal technician would be working on.
Thank you, that would be great.
All right, transportation capital. I just want to kick this one off actually saying, personally, I really like the plan of presenting the grant opportunities, what possibly fits, and then going through Public Works for prioritization, the finance approval. I think that'll be really useful going forward. And then obviously getting the transportation element updated with a really clear prioritization of one document. Here's the priorities. Someone can speak up if I out of line, but I think the entirety of council really supports that, and that'll make it really, really clear going forward of what's the next major project for the city to focus on.
Yeah, I'm encouraged about it. I just hope we do like continual quality assessment like we're talking about, you know, and just make sure it's working for you too. So yeah, but I'm excited about it. I'm not really clear with what the process is going to be, but at least there's a stop, I guess, at the Public Works Committee to kind of look over something finance and then come into council.
It's something we're going to have to work through. I mean, we've got a goal, we don't have a plan right now. And so we're going to be working through that with the transportation element of the comp plan. And it's not something you can do once and then set aside until you update the comp plan. So I don't know if it's going to be annual updates or biannual or whatever it is, but it's definitely something that's going to be a living document. It's going to have to be.
Opportunities come up kind of randomly.
Yeah.
We need to plan projects that fit that opportunity too. So
Yeah.
it's not going to be here's A, B, and C, and that's all we've got. In the plan, there's an opportunity, and it might be a project that fits the first three priorities. So it's a moving target, but we plan on trying to identify an opportunity for us to identify projects that like that.
Just for anyone online, it's some city engineer to leave or set up opportunities come up and.
You know, it just occurred to me that Ned's not speaking into the microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can repeat what you did. Yeah, so we have to have actually a lot of flexibility on that because, like Ned just indicated, I mean, there are grants that pop up. We don't see them coming, right? Or we see, oh, gee, look, there's a zero match grant for item 7 on our list. Well, let's do that, right? Let's pursue that one. Maybe it's not our highest priority, but it's something we can implement. So there's flexibility that has to exist in this plan to meet opportunity. So that. Perfect.
Summed it up perfectly. All right. Council, any questions regarding transportation capital? I definitely have a few. I know this is probably a big category.
I do, but it's on the next page.
In the next slide, or
Yeah.
oh yeah, why don't you go for your question?
There we go. Am I correct? Is this the page? Because I was able to see it over there, and now I can no longer see it again. But you had been talking about different street classifications. Is that this section? Locations that are identified by operations management, and followed by your comment that transportation projects, and you were talking, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, so I'm going to just use a specific example, like 13th Street between Kitsap and Callow, which is classified as residential, but your department has recently said that it merits investigation to determine if it's actually a collector, which would be a functionally classified street. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So when you did this, you only used the classifications that are
Established. Yep.
that are already established. Like, so from the 2018 pavement management, I can never remember, ITS, IMS. Okay.
Yeah, I think the functional classification does identify in that, but actually, so functional classification is a program that's managed by WashDOT. We don't control it, and we don't direct changes to it. We can request changes to it. So a few years ago, I was involved in working on the functional classifications of some streets downtown, and I think 4th Street was one of them. And it's a process. I mean, it's not a simple process to go through. It's pretty prescriptive. We had to hire a consultant to assist us with it. It was a lot more work than you would think to get a change in functional classification. And the odd thing that I found was that we wanted, in order to add the functional classification of one block, we had to remove the functional classification of another. So and that's how it was managed a few years ago when we did that. It was kind of it's something that we don't control. We have to work with WashDOT on, and it's more complicated than you would expect.
Most things are.
Yeah.
Council, the reason I'm making this point is the discrepancy. If you guys look at what happens with functionally classified streets, arterials and collectors, which you'll remember from another context, in the transportation comp plan element, where there were 75 intersections that would be on arterials and collectors, but not on residential streets. Okay, so the study is done on arterials and collectors, but not on residential street. The money, as you can see, like 10-1, goes to arterials and collectors, but not to residential streets. If streets are classified as residential but functioning as collectors, that's a burden on the people of Bremerton. I consider it a burden, I should say. It's and it means that we have literally about, am I correct on this? We have about 1/10 the chance of getting grant money.
You got no chance of getting grant money
There
for
you
a
go.
residential street because, for the most part, there are very, very few programs that provide funding, grant funding, for residential streets, and it actually for the streets. There are some programs that we have been successful in getting funding for sidewalks, right? For residential sidewalks, but one thing that is really, you really need to understand is that if we take a street that's functioning as a functionally classified street, or maybe it's an existing functionally classified street, okay, so now because it's classified, now it is eligible for grant funding, but it may not be competitive for grant funding. So Kitsap Ways State Route, so that's not a good example, but 11th Street, right? 11th Street's a functionally classified street, very high capacity street. It is, I believe it's a principal arterial. It's eligible for grant funding and it's competitive for grant funding, right? I believe Snyder Avenue, right? I think Snyder is a functionally classified street. I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. It's eligible for grant funding, but it would be really tough to pull funding successfully out of most grant programs that I'm aware of. And so that's a consideration, right?
Is the functional, okay, I think I'm not going
No,
too
you're
far
good.
off topic.
No, and I have a
Is
piggyback question, so you're
the
good.
functional classification of Snyder one reason that it will be getting sidewalks in 2024? Because, I mean, that'd be a pretty great benefit.
Yeah, I don't think Snyder, I don't know if Snyder is projected for sidewalks in 2024. Dave? Snyder Avenue sidewalks 24?
We've been looking at it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
For TID grant funding,
For TID funding, okay.
but
It hasn't received funding. And that would be, is that the?
You didn't
so
apply.
the TID funding, that was for the funding that we would collect the funding and then the revenue, and then we would do the construction ourselves? Yeah, so we've been doing that recently. It's been great. CDBG and then also TIB has a program for sidewalks, and we've been able to secure grant funding, then have our crews go out and do a lot of work for low funds, and the granting agencies really love it. We do too.
I know, I was so disappointed that your backlog was so great with the people who were doing sidewalks that did not apply for the TIB grants this year because, as you explained, if you apply for a grant and you can't do the work, then you're in a bad position next time you come around. So I was sad there wasn't enough staff for that. Okay, are we finished? I'm all done with transportation projects. Thank you.
So I've got a piggyback question. I got some other in TransCap, but kind of more of a high level. So I know one of the council goals and priorities in transportation was identify additional funding for residential street maintenance and restoration. And not saying that's easy, especially in this given budget year. But do we have any metric that kind of shows over the past couple years and for next year, kind of the total amount of money spent on residential streets? And I know that can be difficult because, again, if you include every pothole fixed, that maybe counts. But just to give people a sense of kind of how much money goes towards residential streets every year.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get back with you. I can just, so this is just me speaking personally. Man, I wish we could get away from talking about residential versus functionally classified. I really wish that we could just start talking about what's our highest need to deliver, but that's just me. So, but yeah, we're going to have to get back with you and see what we can do to provide you additional definition regarding expense.
Okay. I think fair enough to say, oh, I do smell a pizza. I'll close out this. Yeah, so fair enough to say, compared to 2023 or previous years, there's no additional money in this budget really going towards residential streets, or at least no
Same
additional
revenue,
source of funding.
same revenue
Revenue
sources.
came in as
So
amount.
we're spending what we have.
Okay.
Yep.
No, that's good. So smelling that, it's 5 o'clock. Why don't we take a 15, not too long, 10-minute break, 15-minute break? Do 15, perfect. Just gonna extend the break for 5 more minutes to 5:25 there. All right, we'll get the meeting officially back to order and finish up with all our questions. All right, so we were on transportation capital. Is there anything else transportation related? We've kind of got 2 big ones, but it's just down to 4 of us. So if Anna, Denise, or Jennifer, you have any?
No, not about this specifically. I had a different question. I'm not quite sure when is a good time to ask. It's just about REIT. It's about REIT, of course, but
Okay.
Excuse
whenever
me?
it's appropriate, let me know.
Can I, there's the one thing that I talked to you about on the break. You mind if I just?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I said regarding the ability to pursue grant funding for projects, and typically residential streets aren't eligible for grant funding. So I was aware that, you know, we have been able to pursue and successfully get funding for sidewalks, actually, from CDBG and TIB. But Katie reminded me that, you know, again, these programs, they change their rules all the time. And so I believe that Safe Routes to Schools grants may also be have eligibility for residential streets. And in fact, the Elmira improvement is an improvement on a residential street. So there's more flexibility, but very limited, I guess, is a better way to state it. So, thank you.
No, great. Thanks for adding that in. Yeah, Anna?
So, back when we still had the residential street fund, the revenue left over after outlay was directed to the residential street fund, right?
So I believe how that worked when the residential street fund was dissolved, the funding was distributed to both TransCap and streets, I believe. Was it just TransCap? Was it just TransCap? It was just directed to TransCap, and we've been kind of focusing on directing that towards residential improvements. I believe that's fair.
So I can't call it profit because we are not profiting, but the residue of revenue that remains after necessary expenditures have been expended amounts to about how much per year?
So can I try to answer? I think I understand your question. So you're asking revenues in, expenses out for residential street, what the balance is and where it stays.
Red light camera.
So there's, if you look at the ordinances and how they're written, some things have directed those resources to transportation capital, not directed strictly to residential, like red light camera. There was a last minute discussion of that ordinance that lets it be free for transportation improvement fund, not just residential streets. What is solely restricted to residential streets is your car tab fee, which is $680,000 to $750,000 a year, somewhere in there. $20 car tabs.
Can you repeat that number, please?
I'll say 600 and, what do you have in it? So we have currently in the budget $600,000 that is dedicated, restricted for residential street that lives within the Transportation Capital Fund. Now going back to what you've seen in previous years when the residential street fund was still there, we had a significant fund balance because we were not spending that money down as fast as we are now. Our programs weren't built. We didn't have our sidewalk program. We didn't have, we purchased, I believe, a paver, a roller. So we had, excuse me, I'm still trying to swallow from the pizza. A very targeted plan last couple of years has spent those reserves down. So now our transportation plan residential, we spend more than what our restricted revenue is. And so they go outside of that and use those unrestricted transportation funds to do some of those other projects. It might be red light money that's sitting in the fund balance. It might be stormwater utility money that's sitting in the fund balance. It might be a TIB grant. It might be a CDBG award. But we are spending more than that $600,000 a year on residential streets.
That is totally great. So what is the remainder of the revenue from the red light cameras after necessary expenditures have been expended? What does that amount to?
It's fully exhausted what the profit was from red light. It's been fully expended in the budget.
It's fully what?
Fully spent. That dollar amount's been fully allocated in the budget and spent for residential programs.
That is really cool. How much is it?
I think what did we budget? 200 and the net for the red light tickets. What was our 203? Just over 300,000. So.
I'm trying to find it. I thought I had all those revenues.
We have the same budget amount going into 2024 as well as what we had in 23.
Yeah, 300 for both.
Correct.
Any more questions on that one?
So there's a total of at least 900K for residential streets.
The red light ticket money is not dedicated to residential streets. It's dedicated to the Transportation Improvement Fund. It can be used on any program that's transportation related. So some of those monies do get used for residential streets. But the only dedicated source of revenue that sits in the Transportation Fund for residential streets is the TBD fees.
But that's our choice to not spend it on residential streets. Is
Yes,
that
correct. They use those funds to develop the program that Tom's presenting to you here. This is how we fund our overall transportation program for 2024, and it uses all those different resources. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So Michael Goodnow is not here, so I'm going to ask a question for his district on kind of Callow and Charleston. About just kind of future plans there. So I know we had I believe it was 2020 study of the area. There's kind of an active business group, resident group there, looking for improvements along Callow. I know like Public Works has been excellent about the planters that were on East 11th and Perry. You know, I joke like the hand-me-downs from my district. As I got the new project there, I went over to Callow, which is great, and we've got the crosswalk. Is there any kind of plan at the moment for a bigger concentrated effort there to implement some of that 2020 study, anything in the current budget or anything that the administration's looking at down the road?
You know, that's really the goal of trying to prioritize our capital improvements, right? With the transportation element of the comp plan. We're able to move forward a couple items that resulted from that, I can't remember what they call it. I keep calling it a sub-area plan. I keep being told it's not that. But it's similar to it. So the Wyckoff wall is in that. That crossing, that mid-block crossing is in that. We're moving those two forward. As far as like a major reconstruction project of Callow Avenue, we don't have it programmed as a separate project. It's not a tier 1 or tier 2 project right now. We don't have funding secured for that. We don't have a priority right now established for that type of a project, but we expect to consider that with the, with the transportation element of the comp plan, along with, the other projects that are outlined in that plan.
Like the overhead lighting and the
Yeah, all of
similar,
it. Yep.
similar to the other.
Oh, well, actually, let me say one more thing about the lighting first. Hang on. And this really isn't specific to Callow, although there's been emails going back and forth regarding Callow. But we have a plan right now that we're actively working with Puget Sound Energy on for LED conversion of all the PSE-owned lights in the city. I think it's, I can't remember how many years it's going to take to implement. Is it 3 years? Three-year plan. So we're generally starting west and working east. Callow Avenue is included in the first phase of the plan. I'm surprised that I haven't seen a contract with PSE yet to do that work. We're actually fairly far along on that. I would hope that we would have that lighting improvement completed, hopefully by the end of the year. I would think it's part of the first batch to come through. This has taken a little longer to get going than we'd hoped for, but we are actively working on that. But that's just the PSE owned lighting. Anyway, Ned, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so one place that we need to get more detail for Callow Avenue is on the tip. So right now, I think it was a Callow planning study.
Yeah.
It looks like a sub-area plan, but it's not on the sub-area plan page when you go to the DCD website because it's a slightly different animal apparently. But it came, I guess, I don't know. So on the tip right now, it just references that general study for all of the projects that were outlined in that facilities plan. But there's a Callow corridor. I think is it a Wyckoff corridor? What's the next street over?
I think so.
Wyckoff
There's,
corridor.
yeah.
So when this came up recently, and it's like, hey, we need more detail on the tip so that it can actually show as a tier 3 project that there's a standalone Callow improvement project on the tip, and then as we go through prioritization and we recognize there's a tier 3 project there, maybe that can be a grant funded project that we recognize. But right now, it was just sort of buried under the general title of that planning study. So next year's tip should see a change where we're defining that or clearly identifying some of those standalone projects out of that study.
That's excellent. Okay. I'm just making notes for.
Thank you.
So if we get the individual elements into the tip, and then that'll basically allow, as grant opportunities come up, to apply for those specifically.
Yep.
Could we talk a bit about how grant opportunities come up? Because, I mean, how do they come up? Do they obviously leprechauns do not leave them in your inbox. I feel really sure about that, but I don't know the process.
Just to clarify, asking how Public Works becomes aware of grant announcements and opportunities.
The phrase they used was grant opportunities come up, and so I'm leaving it to them to define.
I get like 100 emails a day, literally, right? And this is one of them. And we have so we get emails from all of the agencies that put out grant opportunities that come up all the time. That's how we find out about them. That's how I find out about them. And after I've gotten an email on that, there are citizens that email me. I mean, believe me, we're looking for them actively, but we've got a lot of people looking for them for us as well. So, what do you want to add to that, Ned? I don't think we have any problem finding grant opportunities. And then, so I can just tell you how it goes is, a grant is on your radar, and then you go to the website and you look and see what the rules are. You look at the match, you look at the time frame, you try to identify what their priorities are, what types of projects they want to see funded with that particular grant. Some of them, we have a really good idea of when they're going to be announced. I mean, we talk to, we talk to the agencies, we talk to the TIB, we talk to WashDOT. We attend, PSRC has a planning group called RPEC, Regional Project Evaluation Committee. That's where the funding for the Surface Transportation Program comes from. Mostly what they talk about there are grant opportunities. So we see those coming from a long ways away. Sometimes other grants, you just get an email, oh geez, there's a new FHWA grant that hasn't been out for 5 years, and it's a new project, and here's what they're doing, or economic recovery. I mean, they just pop up all the time. So there's a lot of different grants. We find out about them in different ways.
Perfect. Anything else go to Public Works Committee?
And it's you who determines if you're going to pursue it or hand it off to someone else or just scroll past it?
No, what we do is,
I'm just asking.
if we see a grant opportunity, like Ned and I are having these conversations right now, and we've been having these conversations for a couple weeks, and what I'm asking is, I need to understand engineering's capacity. I understand Katie's capacity; she has none for projects in the next year. I need to understand engineering's capacity, and that's a simple question. That's a really complex answer to give, right? Because what he has to balance with that is all of the other projects that we're working on. I did a little bit of math. Let me just tell you just where we are right now, and I thought this was it was just kind of interesting. So I mentioned that we have $40 million in capital projects right now that we're delivering, right? And every quarter at our Public Works Committee, we go through our list of capital projects, and we have a paragraph this long on each one, and it's 8 pages long and takes almost 2 hours to get through when you talk about the projects very briefly. And so I was thinking here the other day, gee, I wonder how much total project value we're actually working on. And so I added together any project that we're working on a single phase on right now. So what's the total value of that of those projects being listed? So if we're working on a $500,000 design right now, but we know that there's a $5 million project behind it, I added that in as $5 million, right? What I didn't add in planning studies, like the West Kitsap Way study, I added in just the cost of the planning study, which was a few $100,000, not the $80 million in projects that are behind that. I didn't add that in. I also didn't add like the nutrient general permit. I mean, that's we have like $100,000 project every year now that we've been working on for a couple of years to understand that. I added in the $100,000. I didn't add in the $100 million treatment plant upgrade. But just looking at the projects that we're actively working on right now, it's $130 million that's on our plate right now that we're actively working on. $76 million in transportation alone. Okay, our arms are full right now, right? They really are. I mean, that's what we have that we're actively working on now. So we're capacity limited from a staffing standpoint, but then also from a match standpoint. So when it's a complicated answer. It's hard to answer what we have capacity to deliver without knowing exactly what projects, what opportunities are available to us. without, with the limited match that we have, and then the limited resources that we have available with engineering.
It sounds like basically the plan going forward is kind of proposes to have a standing excuse me, a standing item in Public Works Committee to, would it be a place to say, here's the grants that popped up, here's what we're applying for, Public Works Committee, you agree, this is the top priority, and then if there's the case, for example, sorry, too much pizza. If there's the case, for example, where Anna, you see a grant and you said, hey, did you see this one? If no one did, then sounds like great, good catch. If not, then be like, yeah, we looked at that, we don't qualify, or that's a case we can say, well, we're not applying for these reasons. Sound like general agreement, that's kind of the rough process to aim for next year.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I'm happy to do that, to identify, and actually, we did that earlier this year. I think we did that twice in this last year. We had a presentation to Public Works Committee. I'm not sure that it was exhausted. Well, I know it wasn't exhausted because there's so many grants that come at us, right? There's all kinds of EV charging grants and things that come at us that we just don't have capacity for, right? So some of those we just reject out of course, but the transportation grants, you know, yeah, we'd be happy to identify those grants that that we are aware of. Yeah.
Excellent. I got,
Add to that?
if you want to add, yeah.
So I tried to pin Shane down today, like, hey, what is that capacity question for engineering? And in order to know that, you got to look forward like 3 to 4 years. Like our construction, you know, when we have a big project, we're talking about construction in 27 or 28, and we need to know that we have staff assigned to cover those projects. So in his evaluation, right now, it looks like we have the capacity to add like 2 or maybe 3 projects over the next couple of years in terms of a grant opportunity. Now, I think those are the big projects, you know, like an 11th in Perry or 11th in Washington and things like that. And we can probably fit in some smaller projects that that we might be able to accomplish. But we're capacity constrained right now, and we have priorities that already sit on the tip as Tier 2 projects. Right, Tier 2 is partially funded. That should mean that those are the highest priorities to try to keep delivering. Especially if we've done design work already and we want to go get to construction, what you don't want is to do design and then have it sit on the shelf and, you know, not be executed and not deliver what you said you were going to from the start when you got the design grant. So it's going to be a challenge, and when you look at that REIT table on page 113 in your budget, that is where we get our match. And we have options for match, which is like, hey, if you're doing a project that's got some utility funding or there's a water main you're going to put in, you're going to put in a sewer main with that project to replace something, or it needs some storm drainage treatment. Like maybe there's some storm or water or sewer money that can come in and offset what would, you know, probably be REIT or, you know, some other stormwater utility tax is the other big one, which isn't very big. Right, so it's gonna be a challenge to really add much more to our plate. And then when we say, hey, we're gonna have a standing item on Public Works Committee, like we can go after 6 grants, but Lord help us if we get all of them, right? So we need to be careful about not just applying willy-nilly, because then we definitely have a problem and you know, like over-promising and under-delivering, which grant agencies do not like. But we definitely want to look for opportunities, have a plan that's, you know, like thorough, and vet it through Public Works Committee. Say, hey, here's an opportunity, and we have a capacity, and when we do that, we have to have some sense of where match is going to come from. We can't just bring a grant opportunity forward and go, hey, we can get money, but there's a 30% match or 15% match, and not know where that's going to come from, right? And that's when we go to Finance Committee and help vet that. But it's complicated. Like, it's not just, hey, these are our projects and we're going to go after them. There's a whole lot that goes into our decision as to what we go after, how we go after it, how we match grant funds.
Yeah.
It's complicated. So, and we try to do the best we can to carry the projects forward that are the high priority projects based on the tip and the tier schedule in the tip that we've already, and so obviously 6th Street Rechan. right? That's a high priority project for everybody. We've already gone after 2 grant applications for that, and you know, we'll see how that works. But Naval Avenue is a high priority project, so there's already a list of projects that are high priorities that we're trying to keep carrying forward. So, was that too much?
No, I think that's fantastic. No, and it's great to current to the budget. Yeah, Mike. Oh, Jennifer.
Thank you. Was my mic? I'm sorry if my that wasn't muted for a second ago.
No, I
Um,
couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
oh no, good. No, it's okay because I was making a bunch of noise at my desk here, so it's good. Just for my sake, I mean, and that's what you're talking about right now is the funding sources for match, which is really um complicated because some funding can be used for some projects and some can't be used for other types of projects. I completely understand. But besides REIT, what are some of the most commonly used funding sources for match? Like it's okay that I realize that they can't all be applied to every situation. But can you tell me a little bit about the most commonly used sources for match besides REIT?
The most commonly used are utilities, and so you have to have a need to do like a utility replacement, right? So if you're looking at a roadway reconstruction project, and you look and the water mains from the 1920s, and you've had failures on that, well, you don't want to put a brand new road over a failing utility, and so you'll replace the water main. You'll do open cut construction of the water main, and what you'll end up doing is a component of the roadway over the top of that water main can be funded by the water utility. Same thing with stormwater, wastewater, right? That you have to. I mean, it has to need to be replaced. For that to to be a viable match option.
Thank you. I guess that, I'm so hyper focused on REIT when I see the match that I want to make sure that to open my scope a little bit more for how I'm viewing when the matching funds come in. And so basically what I hear you saying is for the different utility projects, or projects where utilities need to be replaced, such as a storm drain, etc. Utilities can be used for that match. Did I get that right?
It's very site specific,
Okay.
where you can use them, but it only. I mean, it's only. Well, first off, I'm kind of hyper focused on REIT myself, so I kind of. But
I understand.
yeah, but it's very very site specific.
Okay.
You can't take water fund revenue and directly apply it to a street improvement project. That's not allowed.
Gotcha.
But if you have a utility that needs to be replaced, you can incorporate that into the scope of an overall project, and then you can carefully and appropriately allocate some funding, a component of that funding to the overall project cost, and have that act as match, right?
Thank you. And so, and just clarifying question, and this will be it for me for now. But I know that our REIT is trending down how are our utilities revenue? I mean, is that trending in any particular way?
It's presented, actually, the forecast, the 6-year forecast is presented, I think it's on page 111.
Right. Okay.
111 to 113, and it's flat at like 1.5 million a year.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it's flat at 1.5 million in revenue, and the expenditure is more every year.
And so just that I understand, our REIT is trending down, our utilities are flat. So the matching funds are seemingly dwindling in a sense. Am I right about that?
If I could jump in, I think Tom just answered the REIT question twice. Our utility funding is actually, because we have a rate model, that's
Right.
trending with market, so you have increases. And then
Okay, thank you.
on for our capital projects. So if I could give my 2 cents just on the funding match scenarios, what REIT does for transportation over the last 10 years here, and that's where we've really seen a lot of REIT match instead of those utility project matches, it gives you flexibility in the choices of projects that we're able to fund. And so that's, I've heard a lot of the council talk about choices and priorities. That allows you to have priority on the project for transportation you want, because REIT can be used for the match on any project. If you're limiting it to the utilities, which is again another source for us, we've done it for years, it limits your scope on what project you can fund for your transportation project if utilities is your match, because you have to have that component of the project in the project scope. So just want to add that in.
Thank you. And my assumption, but I mean, you know what they say about assuming, but is that you're trying to use utilities first before REIT when you're doing the matches, the matching funds.
If
If
those,
it's site specific.
we go priority first on the project, and if that project pencils with, I'll use Quincy Square as an example. Quincy Square was a project we identified, wanted to fund, we went after grants, and there is some utility components in the budget that offset the ability to have to use, I think it's roughly $900,000 a REIT. So
Right.
you look at those things first, what's available first, and if it's available, of course, we're gonna go with those monies first, it makes sense. And then REIT's gonna be that backfiller. When that REIT component's gone, then those projects are off the table.
Thank you for the clarification on that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Denise, I knew you had a related question, so I'll
Well,
give you
yeah,
time.
I'm concerned, the larger question for me is I know that we've got a whole bunch of money in here for the work where we're doing over on Oyster Bay. And I know that money had to come from somewhere. And so what I'm asking is with REIT, I'm noticing the fund balance, you know, starting to crash. And so I guess I'm wondering where the money, what's the impact of that 2.2 or whatever it is, I think the mayor's saying that we're spending. Do you know what I mean, Mike?
Yeah, correct, sure. So I can jump in there. So I'll start with the utility piece of the funding for that project. So that is in our 6-year outlook that was already planned. It's already in our forecast to develop that site for our future build out of the Oyster Bay site. So that's already there. It's already programmed. It's in our rates. It's in our models. It's in our debt pull down. That's already there. On the other side, you have the ARPA funds, which are restricted funding, and there's not a lot of uses for that, as we've talked about. It's for the thing. So that money we were able to pivot and use those funds, which this is one of the top priorities within the rescue funds with houseless and homeless. We're able to use those funds, which are extremely restricted, and found eligible use for it. So that really, that startup money doesn't have in the operational side of taking away from something else. It didn't take away from something else. It was money we could use and utilize. So those two funds. Now we do have a small component of REIT, looking at what we thought the budget could handle for houseless, because up to a certain amount, based on the new laws that came out a couple years ago, that was the carve out, the 200,000 you see. It's about what we think the fund could potentially handle. As you look at the REIT projection, it falls off in 2028. So I could easily sit here and say, maybe that money isn't really available. Maybe not a great use of that REIT money for that. But right now, as we carved out, trying to put as much money we could into our project, make that project be able to come to fruition in the new year. So.
Okay. And then I heard something earlier around the Oyster Bay clearing. And I just want to clarify. I think you said, Tom, that it wasn't in the budget. But it is in the budget, right? That's the 1.1? No.
It's going to come with a budget adjustment. What Mike was saying is that it's in the 6-year forecast, right? But specific to the budget, no. In December, it's our intent to come to council with the contract to finish the design of the grading of the site. That will come with a budget adjustment request for funding. And what Mike's saying is that that's anticipated in the 6-year forecast for the
Right, the
yeah.
clearing, I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
use.
If I could jump in. So it's earmarked. It's not, because we haven't issued a contract, we haven't awarded, we haven't placed the water utility fund in the budget yet. It will come with an amendment, but it is earmarked as set aside that is available for this project because it's in that 6-year outlook. The ARPA funds are in the budget. Those are directed, even though we don't know exactly what the contract will be, how much we're spending, we took every dollar we thought possible, wanted to show you that's been dedicated and earmarked with the utility fund as they enter into a contract for the grading, you'll get a budget adjustment that that money's available. It's just not sitting on a line item in their budget, but it's available. It's been earmarked for you. So
Okay. That's it for me.
Actually, gonna follow up on that one. So if I just search the word oyster in the budget, I get the Oyster Bay Avenue improvements with money estimated in 2027, 28, 29. But where is the ARPA fund specified?
Art, you're gonna see the ARPA funds. I think it's in, do we identify non-departmental right now, I believe? The ARPA, yes. ARPA is identified in the non-departmental funding? No? Wait, affordable housing? It's in affordable housing. So that money's coming, you'll see a revenue,
Okay,
revenue line, affordable housing.
Affordable housing capital improvement.
Yep, and you'll see an outflow of the.
Oh,
1.1
okay.
million.
Intergovernmental 1.1 million.
Yes, for the audience, page 121 of your budget.
121. Okay. Thank you. And then the REIT funds that are going to this too, that's part of the budget adjustment that'll come in December, or that's in the budget
In the
as
REIT
well?
fund itself, there's a $200,000 component from REIT that's sitting there. It'll be same thing. We'll true that up as we know what the award
Okay.
is.
So 200,000 from REIT. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. And then I got my last big one on transportation to do your small one.
So in tier one of the tip, before we finally leave streets for the happy land of water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities, contained a 200,000 project that you guys were really excited that you could do in-house to create some kind of multimodal thing on Fancy Street in Manette with the wall between it, 31
Upper Shore
vehicles
Drive.
per day.
Upper Shore Drive,
Upper Shore Drive.
right.
Right, but you determined that you could not do that, and yet I see it in this budget, so I'm just
Yeah,
going,
So
huh?
the budget takes a long time to develop, right? So it was identified as a project, and that we were intending to move forward. And then after that was established, the determination was made that it didn't, it just wasn't a viable project. And so it still shows up in the budget, but we're not gonna deliver it.
Okay, not to, be monomaniacal or anything, but are the funds for that applicable to residential streets?
Potentially, I'm not really sure what revenue was allocated to that, or if it got that granular in the budget, to be honest with you. It's like 40,000 or something.
I see 148,000.
Yeah, 148.
Yeah.
Kim's looking. Stormwater utility tax, so it could be used for either, right? Yeah. It's in the residential section. Okay, so yes.
So, yes? Cool, thank you.
No, that's a great question. Okay, so anything that can use stormwater utility tax dollars, in essence, we have 148,840 to possibly reassign elsewhere?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
True, yeah.
Cool deal.
We have projects that are getting more and more expensive.
And over
if
budget, yeah.
we're too quick to spend it and allocate it, we might find we regret it. So we're constantly running up against that. Just
Fair
wanna
enough.
make that comment.
That's for Upper Shore Drive. What if I want Lower Shore Drive? No. Just joking. Okay, I have kind of a big serious one because I know you already mentioned it, Ned, and I want to just focus on solutions on this one because I know there's been some headbutting between community on this one. So as far as the 6th Street rechannelization goes, just want to recap to make sure I got it right because I know there's been some misunderstandings out there. So 2022 applied for a grant for, I think it was a bit over $2 million. Construction would have been in 2024, but wasn't awarded. This year in 2023 applied for a grant that I think was a bit over $4 million total dollars.
No.
Nope.
hang
Oh,
on.
sorry. Thank you.
Okay,
Correct me.
so the first one, you're right, the grant that we applied for in '22 would have delivered that with the pavement preservation project next year. The grant that was applied for in July of this year It was for design and right-of-way, and it was a component of the design and right-of-way. And I think that the grant amount that we would have received was like 700,000.
Yeah, it was like between $700,000 and $900,000
Something like
for
that.
design and right-of-way acquisition.
Okay.
Because you could do 2 phases for that grant application, and so we put in for design and right-of-way.
But
not construction.
But the granting agency wanted to understand how are you going to deliver that. And so what they asked for was a projection all the way through construction. And so although it wasn't part of the grant request, the application also identified it projected what the cost would be all the way through construction. We don't have funding for construction. So when the engineer was putting the application together, they said, okay, well, we think that, you know, design's going to be in, I can't remember, 25, construction, or design and right-of-way 25, and they forecast construction in 28. It was a guess. It was just a flat guess. There's no dollars behind it, but we had to show a time frame for that work. When you forecast that cost out, that heavy capital cost that far into the future, and you put cost escalation against that, you know, at 5% for every year, you end up with a big increase in cost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then additionally, and then this is on page, I think it's 113, in order to be consistent with the grant application, we had to show where the match was coming from, right? And so if you look at the REIT projection, it shows a REIT projection for construction in 2028 of that project. And that is all us just trying to be consistent in order to get the design funding and the right-of-way funding. That's just it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, the granting agency actually asked us to show them a commitment for how we were going to deliver construction. So that commitment looks like a commitment in REIT right now that is pie in the sky. If we don't get a design grant, we're not spending any money in REIT on design. And, you know, once we get to construction, we've shown that we're committed to that construction with a match, but we have opportunities to try to find other ways to you know, use something else for match later. But for the application, in order to apply, they want us to show our match for design and what we programmed for match for construction, so we don't have an orphaned design project that doesn't get delivered. So they want to see a commitment, and it's, you know, you see it here. This is a 6-year projection or whatever in REIT, and you see it going negative when you get to the end. It's not going to do that probably because we'll be pivoting along the way, and maybe we'll find some other sources of funds. But this is what we have to do to commit to an application. So it's more of that complication and what we have to go through to get an application that's going to be viable for a grant.
Perfect.
Even, just for design even.
Gotcha. That one. Okay. So we had the two, yeah, and that one just missed the cutoff for funding, so it's on contingency.
Correct.
Right. Do we know when that, when we'll know if it gets contingency funded or not?
I
Or is
don't
it
know,
just
probably in
going-
the next year.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, I think it's if somebody else can't deliver.
Right.
Or they get more funds somehow. We have had contingency projects that did get funded. The Kitsap Way study, I think, was one of those out of the countywide process. But there's no guarantee, but we're close. Like we're kind of on the bubble and we might have an opportunity there.
Okay.
And we're going to continue. We understand the priority of that. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to continue to look for other opportunities, maybe better opportunities. That was one that we saw coming at us. We met with one of the committees. I can't remember. It was either finance. I think it was finance. And we got approval to or direction on how you interpret it to apply for 2 grants. We got one, and we're close on the other. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So looking at the phase 3 pavement preservation project, so there's $890,000 in the 2024 budget. That's the matching funds to complete that, right?
Yeah, I think the grant amount on that one, just going off of memory, is about
Yeah.
1.5 million, I believe, and then the balance, I think, is coming from another source. Is it REIT?
Talking about phase 3 now?
Yeah, next year. 24 for pavement preservation phase 3.
Yeah, I think I found 890 when I was
It's
looking
REIT
earlier.
at how much? It's like 892
Okay.
and REIT for phase 3 next year.
And that's from REIT, okay.
Yes. And so another thing about that, that project right now is federalized. Those are federal funds. So trying to, and honestly, our fear right now, and Ned just kind of alluded to it, is that the project may be over budget. That's our concern with that one. But it's a federalized project. It's gone through federal permitting. If we were to try to pull in a whole different bit of scope, we'd have to go back through permitting again on that, and which could jeopardize the funding of the project, the schedule and the funding on the project. So these grants, especially federal, it's the worst way to deliver a project. Really complicated. The only thing good about it is the money's free, right? That's the only reason, right? But it really heavily complicates project delivery. It's really tough.
So I guess my kind of question is obviously, I mean, it's clear that this is definitely a high priority to get the rechannelization done.
Yep.
And so far we've had two grants, one not successful, one, on the cusp. Is the plan to just keep applying for more grants to do the same scope of work? And I have to ask, I know it's been discussed, but is there a more agile approach here to, and I'm honestly even thinking with phase 3 and the pavement preservation of just being able to put down some basic paint, even if it's just for that segment of the phase 3 preservation project. I know it'd be a bit of an orphaned bike lane, but that has happened elsewhere in the city.
You can't do it without design. You cannot do it without design. Oh, we don't have the capacity to deliver the design. And it's not in the scope, the permitting scope, and beyond that, I'd have to rely on engineering, and probably not Ned, probably more like Shane or Gunner, right? Because Ned's not a transportation guy. Ned's a utility guy.
Ned tries really hard.
Yeah, so my understanding, so the first grant application was WashDOT Bike Ped, and I think I got this right, tell me if I'm wrong on it, but I believe one of the reasons that we were unsuccessful with that grant wasn't because we didn't have a great project, because we have a great project, right? But we also had other funding that we'd received recently, and that's one of the considerations that granting agencies use when they're trying to figure what projects to fund. And so if Bike Ped comes up again and we have capacity and we have match, maybe we'll be successful. And I think that there might be an opportunity in 24 for that. But delivering that with the project in 2024, delivering a that project in 2024, it's really not possible at this point. It's not possible.
Okay, and kind of a follow-up, and it's an uncomfortable question, but I have to ask it. So we have the Complete Streets Ordinance, which basically, says, I think it was passed 2017, 2018, and it says for any, major roadway project, anything besides, from my understanding, street cleaning or sweeping or something real minor, but something in this case where we're doing the pavement preservation in phase 3, that it needs to basically have the multimodal component addressed. And if it's not, there needs to be basically a written exception from the Public Works Director to the Public Works Committee saying, why not? And I don't know if that was possibly overlooked in this phase or not, and I just have to do due diligence to mention that if we're allocating money for the matching for this project going forward, that gets addressed in kind of the proper way.
I have to look at that. To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever formally written an exception on anything. I can tell you that I shouldn't say anything, on this project or other transportation projects. We absolutely focus on active transportation options on every single project that we deliver. It's a major focus. And quite honestly, it's usually part of scoring criteria that be incorporated in grant applications. So typically on our transportation projects, we're not going to get them if we don't have an active transportation component. This is a different one. This is STP funding through the KRCC countywide program, and their rules specifically state that the grant can only be used, the preservation grant can only be used for mill and fill and other pavement preservation options. And any scope outside of that has to be locally funded. Please.
So in that countywide program, there's different categories of projects that you can go after grants for. And so if we went after a preservation grant and then we folded in this multimodal complete streets project, it's sort of a bait and switch for the program. Like it's really, we're competing with the county doing overlays, other cities doing overlays. And so they're pretty specific, I think, to keep it clean in terms of the scope for that grant opportunity in the countywide program. I think that's probably why it's restricted that way.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could go in for a preservation project and then build whatever we want, spend the money on a reconstruction almost, right? So, I mean, I think that is probably accurate, but it's very specific when you go into the countywide program. They've got like 4, 5, 6 different buckets of opportunity and description of projects for you to go and plug in for your grant request. And we usually put in 2 or 3 applications, and we usually fund one and maybe get on a contingency list with one. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, my last question on this subject that I just have to ask is, so we have the 890,000 committed from REIT for 2024 for the matching. You know, the plan is to go to bid at the start of next year and do construction in 2024. Is there an option to push that out a year? Obviously, we have the concern that construction costs would continue to escalate. But contract-wise, I thought I saw that construction didn't have to be finished till 2025. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct or not, but
I don't remember.
Yeah.
That's something that we're going to have to follow
Okay.
with you.
No, absolutely.
And
If
talking to
just by next week, if you're
and
able
talking
to.
to Shane. But the
Yeah.
one thing that I could tell you that, I mean, engineering programs, their work activities out. And if we were to do that, then that might tip over, project delivery on other projects. Projects don't get less expensive. I mean, you just look at inflation, right? So you likely end up with higher project costs. And if we were to do, we still don't have funding to do the design and construction of a project that would incorporate that scope. And I believe, and we're going to have to confirm this, I believe we'd end up having to go back through and do the environmental permitting for it because it's a federally funded project. So we'd end up throwing away, on some level, the permitting that we've already paid for in order to redo it.
Nope, makes sense. Just a question I had to ask. All right, I think that's all I have on 6th, unless anyone else, because I know it's a hot button topic. Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so back in 2020, Lori Wheat was on the Public Works Committee, and she asked if it'd be possible to, and specifically for 6th Street Phase 3. That's how long we've been talking about this thing. And you guys probably been talking about it even longer. So she was wondering if it could be done at the same time as the 3rd phase, like if the road diet were decided on, which it has been. Mm-hmm. Could it be done at the same time? And Shane said that, yeah, you're just going from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes. You're not moving the curb. You're just changing the channelization in between. And here I'm going to quote, so it's a pretty easy forward compatibility project for us to implement. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering what changed between July 2020 and now. And I guess I'd just really like to add that I'm asking this question because I don't know the answer, not as a way to say, where were you on the night of, okay? Just saying.
So, well, one thing and then go ahead. So that you're referencing a conversation at a Public Works Committee from almost 4 years ago and over 3 years ago, right? Since that time, we've done an evaluation through the JCTP. We've completed an evaluation with the traffic engineer. We've put together 2 different cost estimates where we've tried to do a little bit, a fair level of detail in understanding what the project scope is. On some level, we still don't understand the project scope because we haven't designed it. But what we have done is, and I'm Shane. Shane is the person that made that comment over 3 years ago. Shane is also the person who has developed cost estimates for this project and reviewed other engineers' cost estimates for this project and submitted 2 grant applications for this after a fairly thorough review of what the project consists of. And the scope that he is currently looking at includes right-of-way and at least an evaluation of turn pockets for right-of-way. And we need to make sure that here's the thing, we got to make sure we do this right? The last thing, there are people that love the idea of the road diet. I'll call it a road diet. Some people love it. As soon as we go out and say that we're going to rechannelize the road from 4 lanes down to 3, some people aren't going to love it, because on some level you're diminishing the vehicle capacity on the roadway. We got to do it right, and if we do it right, everyone's going to embrace it. If we screw it up, we're gonna get a lot of pushback, significant pushback, which is going to make this project painful, and the next one very challenging to move forward. Do you have anything to add to that?
A little. I think some of it is, and Shane probably regrets that comment now the way it's being used. I mean, what I think he meant was, it's easy not to reconstruct a street to do a road diet. On Naval, we're reconstructing a whole street to do a road diet. New sidewalks, new curb locations. Like, it's a whole reconstruction of Naval. When you compare 6th Street to Naval, it's easy. But there's still signal alignment, there's still right turn pockets, there's still design work, there's still a safety component to making that whole corridor safe. And so, is it easy compared to Naval? Yes. Is it easy and cheap? No. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to be cheap. And it's going to be very difficult to fold it in to what we're already on. We have a project on track, to get the paving done. It's a huge deal to get, paving done on a street like 6th Street. Like, we want to get that done. We would love to be able to do the Rechan project right now, but it just doesn't fit with the grant program that we have, and we need to do it right, like Tom said. So, is it easy? Well, it's easy, but it's not the easiest. It's going to be a challenge to deliver, and it needs to be designed. That's why we have PEs. We have PEs for safety. That's what the PE is about. As part of that PE license that we get, we take an ethics exam, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into our PE that we hold dear, that we worked hard for, that that I think people don't necessarily understand how important it is for us to make sure that we provide something that's correct and safe. So, I mean, it's important to us,
No one's
right?
questioned that, yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt on it. So we keep talking. Oh, okay. So how much, now I got an next question. So in the grant applications, or just ballpark, how much just to get the design component done?
I can't remember. It was in the last application. I have to dig that up.
Yeah, ballpark wise. Okay, yeah, just rough, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and the question I have to ask, we somehow found, oh, you got it, Mike.
I just want to let you know Jennifer did have her hand raised, and I do want to remind, these are clarifying questions in the budget.
Yeah.
So this is a project that's not in the budget. I just wanted to remind we're kind of going down a path, talking about 2020, and
Fair enough.
And Thursday, great night for
I know.
Thursday. So just put it out there.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Phase 3 reconstruction of the budget, and it ties in, and there's a whole lot of intertwinedness of this, so that's why I'm giving myself leniency to continue talking about it. No.
Can I just say, I do
Okay,
appreciate
that's all I
this
got, yeah.
conversation, though. I do
Okay,
appreciate
good,
it.
yeah.
I just want to put that out there.
Perfect, yeah.
Thank you.
So no, it's
Yep.
complicated. It's complicated. There's a lot of information flying around, so I appreciate just
Yep.
getting it all
Yep.
straight. Anyway, I'm done on that end. So if everyone else is okay. But Jennifer, thank you. You had your hand up. Yes.
That's okay. You know what? Well, you asked the question I was going to ask, Jeff, which was, what was the cost of the design? And I know it's not a clarifying question, but honestly, if we can hammer out some of these details now before the next time we meet, it does feel like a clarifying question to me so that we can understand where we do and don't have capacity. So I guess then I can wait till Thursday to ask this question again, but it's already been asked. But if you could have that information ready for us to review, that would be great. And also just kind of like maybe for the public too, because some folks think that it's just easy to throw down some paint, but what I'm hearing is there's a design requirement. And so just to know the cost of that design requirement would be great. Thank you.
Who knows? Maybe we'll find a typo of $700,000, and we can say, "Hey, let's use that for a kickoff a design."
That would be wonderful.
You know?
Because I was going to say, right now, I don't believe I have identified $800,000 in the budget that would be available. And also, just to remind council, any in-depth questions you do have, please submit an email. We'll be able to follow back with you and be planned for Thursday. That's very helpful. And I do like the organic nature of some of the questions. I just put a reminder out there as we're about 17 minutes in to the 6th Street topic, just to kind of keep things moving. That's all that was. Thank you.
That was my only last big one.
Thank you.
All right. Why don't we just say anybody have questions on? I got water operations, wastewater, stormwater, anything water, liquid related. Anna.
I do have two questions, and I hope that they are non-controversial. The first one is, this is enterprise funds, utilities. Why was there such a big increase in wastewater capital from 2023 to 2024? Just wondering.
It's project delivery. I can't tell you what project specifically we're delivering, but construction's expensive. They've been working on design, right? Do you have anything to?
No, it's basically the CIP. We go through the CIP, and that are we doing construction? Are we doing design? Projects have shifted to the right, for staffing reasons actually. So it's a heavy construction year, probably, is what I would say to that. I'd have to look at the CIP.
When you say they've shifted to the right, you mean in a?
They were delayed.
Okay.
Like Minette decommissioning.
Oh, okay.
We had a whole issue with with cultural resources. That project was already supposed to be under construction. On the schedule, it's going to the right. When I say that, right?
I totally get that, and I understand that. I'm so happy that Bill Davis still has any hair. My second question for wastewater is, I love the diagram that shows how our water and stormwater rates are really not just competitive, but amongst the lowest. Mm-hmm. But I guess, did those rates include the tax?
They're the rates that are paid, right? I mean, so yeah, it includes all costs to ratepayers, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I'm just going to do a real quick follow-up just to make sure, because many people like to talk to me about their water bill. I'm sure this is not a surprise, but just to remember that in 2021 and 2022 there was no increase.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And the new information's not on the website, but we can get you the link, and the information from last year is on the website. It's the same message. It's been the same message for as long as I can remember. We've got by far the lowest utility rates in the region.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, we've made clarity to that page. It's on the front page of the utility page. You can get to that graphic very easily. Once council adopts rates and fees next week on, I remind you, the consent agenda, we will be publishing, that will actually go up for next year. Once the council's adopted the rates next Wednesday, we will get that up within the following week.
We will not fail you.
Thank you.
No promises. Quick water question. So we service PSNS for wastewater. Did, piggybacking on the discussion from the other night, did they pay the 50% surcharge as well?
So, bump that. They have a negotiated rate for utility service, and we just got through those negotiations. It was a, Ned, I think you
tied up
me?
in the boards.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's a negotiated rate. Boy, what, 2 years, I think, of negotiations to get through. We completed it a year or two ago, and I don't know when we're up for renegotiating. It's a 10-year contract, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Another rate.
I don't know. How,
Negotiate is a good word. It's all about service and what their demands of service are and how those negotiated rates work and what they're requiring from the system. So it's very, very complicated. We use FCS to negotiate the terms of that contract to look at cost of service. So to where it says low or high, it's what we believe is the right fit for what they're using our utility as. And a component of the entire system is how it's looked at, so.
And I suppose there's not the incentive for them to annex, so. Perfect. All right. Any other watery questions from anybody? Anna?
I am sure that you just misspoke, but you were talking about the roads being for fire prevention. You meant for firefighting, or both?
roads for fire.
Yeah, in the watershed, the brush was.
Well, no. So the roads, they serve a lot of purposes, right?
Yeah.
We've had small planes crash in the watershed and had to go out and do rescue. It was just a comment. I mean,
Okay.
We, I believe, and I think Sean's here. So come on up. Come on up, you guys speak in the microphone. So I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, but talk about the purpose of the bridge replacement. That's for heavy equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sean Walsh, forestry manager. So, so those roads allow us access to the watershed utility lands, and we just have them and upkeep them so that we can access it with firefighting equipment if necessary, as well as Tom alluded to, there's also other utility stuff going on out there. We have communication towers, we have even water mains we have to go out and service, so we maintain those roads. The purpose of these bridge replacements is 2021 we had the forest bridges looked at by an engineer, assessed, and both these bridges were pointed out as they need to be upgraded to allow for larger vehicles out there so that we could have firefighting equipment out there. So,
Thank you. I have two more utility questions. Both are
Yeah.
uncontroversial.
Knock them out, and I got
Okay,
two
good.
30-seconders. Yeah.
I noticed on the East Side Treatment Center that there appeared to be solar panels on the roof. Is that?
No.
No.
There's no. And those. It's just got a metal roof. It's got a standing seam green metal roof.
My life is a perfect graveyard of buried hopes. Next question is, your electricity has gone up by 25%, and natural gas is going up by some undefined amount.
Correct.
But as a result of the Climate Commitment Act.
Correct.
Okay?
But again, it's just looking at those individual bills, pretty significant increase. Looking at the cost to the utility, it just gets lost in all the other costs, right? So we haven't seen that impact our rates, but I just thought it was very interesting and wanted to share that. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I had it right.
Yep, no, that's right. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right, quick ones. Stormwater, noticed there 475,000 in transfer for 2024. That didn't seem to be there in the past couple of years.
So we froze stormwater rates last year, and ability to do that, we held off on moving, it's a capital, we move a capital amount, we keep it 12% fund balance. There was nothing above 12% we wanted to be able to move into the capital fund last year, so we froze that transfer. We're back to be able to move money into the capital reserve for stormwater now that we reset rates.
Makes sense. And then must tie in also, stormwater capital had no,
There was no transfer
debt
in
proceeds.
from the utility itself. So the stormwater operating fund transfers, you'll see the other two fund, water operations, wastewater operations, they had transfers to their capital fund. Stormwater paused that last year just because we didn't have it. We had a zero rate increase. Okay. So this year we just reestablished it. That's excess above 12% of fund balance in the operating fund goes into the capital fund. So that's the estimated amount. We'll have excess of 12%.
okay, that's good. And then stormwater capital, we had debt proceeds in the past, but then no debt proceeds this year in 2024.
Yeah, Kim, can you look that up, what we had?
Sorry, yeah, I'll find what page.
There was loans.
debt proceeds, the question was debt proceeds and stormwater.
And stormwater capital.
24.
Yeah, I just poking at it because it was, it seems like consistently in the past years, there was always some amount coming from that, and this year it was nothing. God, what page was that?
What, debt proceeds?
Stormwater capital.
It's gonna be the loans, yeah. Huh?
You're just a utility guy, Ned.
So it
Only
looks like in the
stormwater.
budget, it might have been reported combined on one line. If you look in the previous year, you had 765,000,
Sorry, what page number? I lost my own page number.
141. So in 2023, it's 706,000 on other revenue, and then debt proceeds was 885. Where this year you have it looks like into one line item of 1.3 million. So it's probably split out. And it's loans and other transfers. It's just recorded on one line item. You have $1.3 million.
So the two loans that we had last year in 23 was for Ostrich Creek culvert improvement, and then the Pine Basin watershed storm sewer improvement. Those are the two ones that both those projects are wrapping up, and the drawdowns should be wrapping up on 23 as well, right?
Yeah, so
those
what
are
we
the
see,
two
Kim,
loans.
is the way we reported this year, we combine both the debt proceed and transfer on
transfer.
one line item.
Oh, I
So we
see.
just need it, we'll make that correction to carve
Okay.
those back out.
I
It was just a
see.
manual entry.
Okay.
Pine Road and Ostrich Creek. So Pine Road still has some work to do.
It sounds like it's the way it's
Yeah.
presented, I think
Okay.
they got it, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so not an extra 700,000. Okay, next time. Next time. Perfect. All right, last one I got, due diligence. Enterprise funds, capital projects. Looks like there's large capital purchase last year, page 153. I wrote it down that time. But not in surrounding years. That might be it.
Is it R&R we're looking at?
R&R. There we go. Yeah, 2023 had 6 million in capital expenditures,
yes,
but
that's
surrounding
a-
years are only like $1 million.
That's because of delays in vehicles, that was carryover, new year, the year we transitioned to be able to pre-order vehicles. So you had a very, very, very hefty budgeted year. Obviously, we did not see all that come through because delayed vehicles, but yes, that's what that is.
Okay, and then the 1.5 this year was
Yeah, typically we see between
A replacement vehicles and all that. Okay,
Yeah, typically year over year, you'll see between 1.2 and 1.5 million dollars in fleet replacements.
all right. That's all I got. Any other questions? Jennifer, Anna? Yeah, Anna.
I'm really happy about the evactor. Thank you for getting a new evactor.
Sorry, I'm missing it. Evactor?
It's like a giant vacuum capacity.
Oh.
When I see them, I stop. It's like a giant vacuum hose that goes down deep into the watery depths of Bremerton streets.
The city owns 3 of those.
But one of them, it was made, like, it was basically carrying 2 of every animal. It was old. So I'm just really happy that there'll be good tools to work with. That's it.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions? Else I can close this out with 2 quick items. All right. Seeing none. The first item is just a giant thank you again. Again, Public Works is carrying half the city, probably some of the most visible and invisible projects in the city. Visible on the surface and the millions of dollars that keep our civilization running, going underground. So anyway, thank you to everyone in Public Works and all the hardworking staff for keeping the city running. Thank you. Second item was for council. So our next budget workshop will be a week from today on Thursday. That's when we'll be doing our tweaks to budget and having our conversations, and asking some follow-up questions of staff as we do that. I had an idea, which was if folks, and we can massage the dates here, but what I'm kind of thinking, and if it works for staff too, to kind of make Thursday go smoother, is take the weekend to process everything we learned this week, stare at the budget, and if you have any budget change requests and you say, I really think we need 20,000 over here, and I would take it from here based on what I know, to submit those requests to Christine, to council staff, by I don't know if it's too short a turnaround, but end of day Tuesday. Yeah, and if it works for staff, and then what? Either way, yes. Either end of day Monday or Tuesday, we can nail it down. And then that way Christine can compile them all, send them to staff to be able to take a look at. They can see if any of them are like, nice thought, but you cannot take from that fund or anything like that. And then that way Thursday we can come in with them all ready to go on a spreadsheet. I could work with Mike to have them laid out, and put on some footnotes or comments on ones that aren't possible or anything else. Give staff some time, give it the data to mull them over. And then we can kind of go, I think, line by line as council and kind of look for a thumbs up, thumbs down majority on changes that we want to make or not. Go through them all, record that, and then step back holistically, look at all the ones that we agreed on, and go from there. Sounds good. So end of day Tuesday, Monday. Jennifer, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I have a favor to ask in that regard too, just to also save us a little bit of time. And I know Anna's good at this, providing justification for why, like a narrative for why you think this should go here, or why you think that funds would be better played. You know what I mean? Just a narrative so that we can save a little bit of time on kind of like talking through it. So we don't have to give our pitch. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, especially if you're trying to convince at least 3 more of your fellow council members. Staff turnaround time, end of day Monday, end of day Tuesday. I'm tempted to go Tuesday unless that's too short for you.
So I do know your staffer, Christine, is off on Monday. So I don't know if you're gonna be able to turn those around to us until
Good point.
So, and then LTAC's also due at noon on Monday.
Yes.
No, as soon as you can get it to us, we'll try
Tuesday.
to respond, have those compiled to be able to try to respond. So,
Okay.
I'd say no later if we can get them by no later than Tuesday, because we also have Wednesday council, but
Yeah.
as soon as we can get them, the better.
So then come in Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning, and then, yeah.
Why don't we try to get as much as we can by close of it by like Friday? And then we can always do a second dump.
Yeah, being that's tomorrow, I'm gonna need personally the weekend, as folks talk to.
Okay,
All right. Let's aim for end of day Monday. Anything else comes in Tuesday.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I think I need to announce that the next council meeting is this coming Wednesday for a general council session. That'll be at 5:30 p.m. in these chambers, and the public is of course more than welcome to attend. All right. With that, I call this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is. Take.
Cold pizza.